Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Ichigo awoke his true powers to save his mother. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 56, Growing Hate. Squad 14 Main Barracks. I love that kid, he brings me manga. I love that kid, he brings me manga. I love that kid, he brings me manga. Love recited to himself as a calming mantra, trying to avoid being angry with Ichigo for the increase in his workload. The training drills were improving teamwork and cooperation within and among the squads. Everything was going smoothly for a change. Then Orihime was kidnapped and Ichigo let loose most of his Ryatsu over the entirety of Soul Society, creating mass panic throughout the Rokon and Siriidii. On top of that civil unrest was the announcement that multiple hollows entered Soul Society and were hiding throughout the mid to lower Rokon districts. Estimations were around 50 in the initial wave and another 100 in a second. Zaraki's squad jumped at the chance for a fight while Unohana's set up multiple emergency clinics with Squad 6 as protection. The oddest thing was that the hollows haven't attacked a single person that they knew of, and seemed to be looking for something, or someone. I love that kid, I'm punching him as hard as I can next time I see him. Captain Love, a member of the Onmitsukido patrol unit, appeared. We found 2 large hollows in the North 54 and East 63. I'll get on it immediately, Love said, acting quickly as he looked to his 3 main officers. Amagai, you're with me for the one in the Eastern District. Kibun, Ganju, take a unit and take care of the one in the Northern District. Before they left, Ganju and Love shared a glance, reminding them of their secondary task. You have your mission, dismissed. Kasumiyaji Main House. It was another day at the house of the Kasumiyaji, with 2 random guards standing watch over the family's private senkaman. The only oddity in their days was their missing princess, having suddenly disappeared one day with her closest attendants. Matters at the house were still proceeding as normal, thanks to the acting viceroy, but people still wished for the safe return of the young mistress. The doors of the senkaman suddenly began to open, surprising the guards. They weren't expecting anything to happen, especially with an unrecognized voice. So this is the Kasumiyaji house, Ichigo said as he was soon revealed from the light of the dimensional doorway. Seems nice. The guards were unsure of how to act in the presence of a lieutenant, but they knew to bow when she appeared. I hope you enjoy your time here, Ichigo, Rurakayo said happily as she and Orihime came out right beside him. I'll be sure you get the proper treatment you desire. People backing off when I tell them to? Ichigo asked, making Rurakayo nod her head. Ichigo was tempted to yell out his thanks. Rurakayo took notice of the 2 guards staring at them and composed herself. Thank you for your services. Return to your posts, please, she said with a cheerful smile and a slight bow, prompting the 2 guards to blush. They returned to attention as Rurakayo led her 2 friends deeper into her home's grounds. It didn't take them long before they encountered a rather unsavory character. Good morning, princess. A wrinkled man with opaque glasses and a lavender robe over his white robes greeted in a gravely voice. Rurakayo immediately glared at the man, not with her usual distaste when she spoke with him many times before, but with fury. After Ichigo's talk with her attendants, Rurakayo was filled in on everything that was happening. When they finished telling her, she chose action over cowardice. Something she could only do because she had the biggest confidence booster. And to you 2, young Lord Kurosaki. Ichigo scowled at the man responsible for his latest annoyances, and watched him fidget nervously. The moment was immediately diffused when the other members of the clan came flocking to Rurakayo. Hello everyone, she greeted, acting as composed as regal as she could. Sorry for worrying you all. Enryu and Kenria heard great things about some relaxation centers in the world of the living and wanted me to enjoy them. She lied with the cover story they came up with for this meeting. I was unaware that they failed to inform anyone. Nevertheless, you need to conduct yourself more appropriately as Princess of the Dash, Kumoi started saying before feeling as if his heart stopped. The moment passed as quickly as it came with his eyes meeting Ichigo's. The boy was smiling while patting the young princess on the head. Calm down, I've had a long talk with Rurakayo about dealing with this kind of busy life. The girl nodded with a happy smile. It will be my duty to lead the Kasumiaji as the current head. She spoke with conviction that the old viceroy never thought he'd see in the girl. But I must take care that I can be in the right mind to perform that duty, making sure the stress of the job does not crush me and the Kasumiaji. I will take care to do my parents proud. Her declaration earned her a small applause, even from Kumoi, who was currently seething on the inside. However, my stay here is unfortunately limited. I have an appointment and a promise to keep, which I intend to do. Shall I prepare the carriage then, princess? Kumoi asked, eager for any excuse to get away from the hybrid. Rurakayo shook her head. No thank you. It's quite a lovely day, so I'll walk. She took Ichigo and Oraheim's hands and led them away from the house and toward her friends. Once he got himself some privacy, Kumoi clutched at his heart and began gasping for breath. Damn it! No wonder Hanzo was so rattled. He growled, furious that the bratty princess was now untouchable with that hybrid by her side. Well, there is something else we could try. With Ganju. Alright, you know the rules, boys. Ganju called out as he and Makoto led the group into the inner sections of the North 54 district. You help them, you protect them, we are here to ensure the safety and well-being of all souls. If all goes well, we should be able to double the number of districts we can cover and triple the potential applicants joining. Squad 14 was getting the most funding out of all the squads due to its size and main purpose of peacekeeping within the districts. Love was often offered bribes, which he accepts, and immediately arrests the potential briber. All proceeds go to the squad, which going into schools and renovations and other things that are in short supply in the lower districts. Plenty of people join to try and get the easy life, they stay when they find meaning in their jobs, and sometimes Ganju's fist. He always believed in the soul reaper his older brother was, Kyan was always looking to help others. This was his way of honoring his brother after being a jackass for decades. Our main priority is the hollow. Don't forget that. Kibune reminded them as they reached a shopping plaza in a city settlement. There were groceries and wares, but they didn't look like they would last much longer, and most of the people didn't seem like they had a chance to bathe. Most of the Rukon citizens were looking at them with disdain, something Kibune was throwing right back at them. Ganju and several of the other members were watching with more sympathetic eyes, knowing what it was like in the lower districts. Ganju noticed a small group of kids that were ignoring them and eyeing a fruit stand. A look most Rukon brats would recognize, as they'd done it themselves at one time or another. He made his way to the stand at the same time the kids were moving. How much? He asked, picking up some still fresh apples and pears and tossing them at the kids. The kids were shocked as they caught what they were about to steal, the vendor just raising an eyebrow at Ganju. 250 can, for a pound. He said, not trying to cheat the Soul Reaper. Ganju dug around in his pockets before throwing some coins at the guy. Here's 300, keep the change. He told the guy before going toward the kids and pulling the oldest looking one along. The rest of the unit just shrugged and followed while the other kids ate the food. What do you think you're doing, you old jackass? The kid yelled out. He was barely taller than Ganju's waist, with some freckles, a couple of missing teeth, and brown hair. I'm giving you a job. Ganju said sternly, a little annoyed at being called old. I've met with plenty of street rats and they always have their ears to the ground. He held up a small bag of coins, shaking it some to let the kid know the quantity. Food for your attention, and money for your services. The kid tried to grab the bag before Ganju pulled it out of his reach. What do you want? The kid pouted, clearly upset at having to deal with the Soul Reaper, but a little glad that he's letting them keep some measure of dignity by making it a trade. Ganju told him about the hollow in the area and, to the kid's credit, he actually focused on remembering what he's heard. I think I remember hearing about a monster in the northern grasslands of the district that had noticed the people but it wasn't interested in feeding. Does that help? Surprisingly enough, yes.
Kibune said, finally chiming in.
It appears even the weak have their uses. Ganju was about to retort when the third seat began running for the northern grasslands.
Jackass.
The Shiba man muttered before looking the kid in the eyes.
You've been a big help, kid. Squad 14 is here to protect the Rokon. Squad 15, with Isshin.
The captain finished his packed dinner that his wife made as he reviewed his paperwork. One of which was a complaint and demand by Love about Ichigo's little high-pressured stroll through Soul Society after Orihime was kidnapped. He wanted 100 manga of differing titles as recompense.
Nothing specific, just a lot of manga. Sometimes he wondered why he took this job. He was about to head home when Lisa came in. Captain Isshin, Hiyori picked up several unsanctioned Senkaman opening.
She told the father quickly, prompting Isshin to sigh in irritation. They appear to be more of the Kasumiyaji assassins as they are heading for the safe house. Those two still haven't recovered from Ichigo's beating. I shall inform Yurio and Dash.
Don't bother Lisa.
The returned captain said lazily, stretching his arms out. I'll take care of this round personally.
Masaki said I put on a few so I should get some exercise.
The Vizard secretary looked at her commanding officer and adjusted her glasses.
No reinforcements?
That'd be overkill.
Just tell Tsukishima to get ready.
Isshin ordered as he got out of his body and flashed to the safe house, beating the assassins by a few seconds. When the first few tried their attack, they were met with a swift kick to the face that sent them flying back. I wonder how many times you're going to attempt this before realizing that it just doesn't work, he said while the lead assassin appeared before him.
You've got to be kidding me. Hanza groaned out, readying his Bakoto. First that Quincy, then that girl with the weird powers, that monster, and now this.
He felt his assassin's mass behind him as he kept the captain's attention. What the hell is this squad?
Isshin raised his eyebrow and got into an Ayajutsu stance.
Hanza tensed to charge forward, and Isshin drew his blade in that same instant, stopping him dead in his tracks. From behind, he heard the sounds of dying breaths and falling bodies. He looked over his shoulder to see his entire unit killed in just 3 swings.
That monster you're so afraid of happens to be my son. Isshin calmly explained like he was telling a coworker about his kid.
Sparring with him is how I managed to keep my skills from getting too rusty.
Seems I did get a little slower though.
Hanza gaped at the man and poured his power into the Bakoto on his hand. It consumed his arm to his elbow and he held up the mirror, catching the moonlight perfectly.
Isshin, hearing the initial reports, closed his clothes just as the flash happened.
He expected to feel groggy as the attack tried to make him black out. What he didn't expect was the paralysis.
This is new.
That was a reject your squad dealt with earlier, Hanza said, confident now that the captain was restrained in an alternate dimension within his Bakoto, the mirror blade Saiga. Isshin opened his eyes to take in the new surroundings, watery rainbow light coming from above with an endless expanse of darkness on all sides. So long as I can feed my Raisher into this blade, your consciousness is trapped in here,
frozen in place at my mercy.
Isshin moved to test that theory and found himself quite stuck.
Except for his Ryatsu. You clearly did not listen earlier,
the captain said as his power poured forth.
I'm the captain of this squad. I'm one of the big deterrents that are keeping the human world safe.
The mirror on the blade began to crack.
You just kill old politicians and dirty crooks.
You've been out of your league since that little girl came here. Hanza made his Bakoto crawl further up his arm and most of his torso, trying to keep the captain at bay as he charged with the intent to kill the man.
Limit release, Isshin whispered and shattered the mirror.
The world around them shattered with Tsukishima appearing right behind Hanza.
Both Fullbringer and Soul Reaper swung their blades, Isshin's through the Bakoto and Tsukishima through Hanza's neck.
At the end of their swings, Isshin thrust his palm forward and slammed it into the assassin's gut as the Fullbringer evaded. Recognizing a losing battle, Hanza fled, earning a scoff from Isshin.
I think I'd prefer more Arrancar. They were fun. With Ganju.
The info was good and they found a hollow in the form of an ant with a stinger and a bull's skull and horns, with massive serrated mandibles, taller than a double-decker bus, and a prehensile tongue. Some of the squad members felt like they were not going to get any sleep for a while. Choosing caution over action, the Shinigami performed reconnaissance to try and form a strategy. True enough, the hollow kept scanning the area, insect antennae waving about wildly, and it released a strange howl. Not out of hunger or rage, more like a dog calling for its master.
Now that is one creepy hollow, Ganja said, trying to think of a plan of how to fight this thing. Its behavior is quite odd for a hollow, Kibune said, drawing his blade. Here's the plan: someone needs to act as bait and distract it while the rest of us attacks the joints. Volunteers?
The plan was risky and relied on everyone trusting each other to make sure the bait didn't die.
I'll go first, Ganju offered.
My fireworks should keep that beast's attention and distract him long enough for you to tie him down. His confidence seemed to bolster the rest of the squads as they got ready for the attack.
Third seat Kibune, you've got the killing blow.
Not waiting for a reply, Ganju charged forward while pulling out a couple of concussive smoke bombs.
The hollow noticed him pretty quickly and immediately lashed out with its tongue.
Using what speed and agility he could muster, he dodged the beast's appendage to try and get within range, only to be caught and pulled towards the hollow's waiting maw. To Ganju's credit, he had enough control over himself to light the fuses on his bombs as he was held to eye level with the monster.
Where is he? The hollow demanded, just as Ganju threw the bombs into its face.
He didn't even have time to register what the beast said before the explosions blinded it and loosened its grip.
Now!
Ganju heard Kibune say as he fell on his back, slowly pushing himself up. The rest of his unit ran forward and used Kido to create ropes that tied up the oversized ant. Legs and horns were caught in coiling spirit ropes as they pulled the hollow towards them, instinctively making it pull back. Taking a chance, Ganju jumped back before running and drawing a circle on the ground with his hand.
The smoke fully dissipated just as he finished. Turn to sand. Seppa!
He called out, creating a large pit of sand. The Shiba man ignored the drain of his rapier as he pulled out his Zanpakuto, a copy of his original blade except for its name.
Erode, Asashika.
The blade extended a couple of inches and became grittier.
He raised his blade and the sand responded to his will, wrapping around the bull head, as he stabbed the blade down and pulled the hollow down as well, exposing the neck. The fight didn't last much longer as a triple-bladed glaive decapitated the beast, killing the hollow. As the body dissolved, the squad began to relax and hear a chorus of cheers as the townsfolk from earlier followed them.
Most of the group immediately flocked to Ganju, adults giving thanks and children praising his coolness, but no one noticed the glare that the third seat was giving to the Shiba man.
With love. That was a good job by all of you.
Love complimented the squad after their reports were finished.
More Rukon citizens are beginning to trust in our squad, and at the rate we're going, we'll be right back to regular police work.
Most of the squad sighed in relief, though Kibune once again shows a masked irritation.
The rest of the unit went about their duties, except for Ganju, who stuck behind.
The fourth seat was about to say something before Love interrupted.
Let me guess, your hollow asked where is he, didn't it? Why yeah.
Ganju replied, a little surprised that Love was already aware.
How did you know? Because mine asked the same thing. The wizard answered as he made note of the occurrence for a report to Yamamoto and Urahara. Something like this definitely warrants an investigation. That's very unsettling. And we still don't know what's going on with this Bakoto mess.
Ganju said, just before a box hit him in the face and dropping him to the ground. Acting quickly, Love caught the package that was addressed to him.
Looks like Urahara is done with his latest project,
he noted while Ganju pulled himself back up. He got a Bakoto sample from a dead assassin and made some sensors for them. He unpacked a bronze pocket watch that had a radar face and activated it. One for me because of Makoto, just to confirm our suspicions, and several for Squad 15.
The device pinged and noted what they already figured out: Makoto had a Bakoto. The shocking news was a second Bakoto that was with Amagai.
Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers.
Rurikayo's study time. Mum.
The young noble groaned, sort of regretting her choice to take her role as head of the family more seriously. She forgot how much she hated studying and the boring lessons.
Ah! I can't take this anymore. I want to play with Sachi more. I want more of Oraheim's cooking. That's it.
She got up and ran out of her room, coming back seconds later pulling along Ichigo. She made him sit down in front of her desk and sat in his lap, wrapping his arms around her.
Much better.
She hummed before returning to her studies with renewed fervor.
What the hell did that accomplish?
Ichigo screamed mentally.
Nap time.
Her day finally settled down, but Rurakayo was exhausted. Attending Sayori's tea party, seeing all her old friends, introducing Ichigo and Oraheim to everyone, trying to convince themselves that Ichigo's talk with Sayori's future husband won't end up with a missing person, it was a long day for the noble. She was making her way to her room when she saw Oraheim basking in the evening sun, sleeping without a care in the world. Giving in to her own tiredness, she laid down next to Oraheim, just in time for the busty girl to roll over and smother the noble with her large breasts. Rurakayo immediately became annoyed, whether from jealousy or the lack of oxygen she didn't know.
Senna's progress. What the hell am I looking at? Urahara asked, watching a monitor of Senna's mind as she nears resurrection.
I think most would describe this as a massive sugar high.
Mayuri responded, just as confused by the lack of anything really concrete.
All they were getting were memories of her running around, dancing, tightrope walking, and more running.
I'm getting flashbacks to little Yuichiro. Let's take this as a good sign and move on. Chapter 57, Parasite's End. Kasumiyaji's Secret Grounds, Assassin's Base.
Hansa stormed into the facility, prying off the ruined Saiga and heading to the smithy where the Bakoto were forged and developed. Joining him were three of his most powerful and trusted allies in the assassination unit. Jenga, a scarred mountain of a man with yellow armor and an eye patch over his left eye, Jin Naidoko, a small and lean man with pink skin, spaced out square teeth, and bald on the top of his head with what hair he does have being blonde, and Ryukozu, a lean man with a black mask covering his nose and mouth, pink armor on his torso over his black bodysuit, a pink scarf around his neck, and a reverse straight pompadour for his brown hair.
Where is Master Kumoi? Hansa angrily demanded, scaring some of the craftsmen working on the Bakoto.
Lady Rurakayo took over as the clan head and has been keeping him busy. One of the blacksmiths responded, only to be thrown out of the way by the assassin as he headed for the most recent of experimental weapons.
Master Hansa, stop! Another smith cried out, Nuki ignoring them. Those weapons haven't been tested, they could consume you in an instant. Shut up!
Hansa yelled as his three allies followed him, each one heading for a different experimental blade. I have never failed in an assassination and I refuse to let this be the first. I'll kill them, all of them. All of Squad 15 will die by my hand. He shouted, grabbing the latest version of Saiga and letting the living flesh of the Bakoto dig into his arm and permanently fusing with the blade.
You think he's lost it? Ryu asked his allies.
These Soul Reapers have proven strong if they keep beating him.
Jenga answered.
At this point, it's a matter of pride.
If this turns out to be a suicide mission, then why are we here?
Jinai asked, interested in a challenge but not if he would die without any real reason.
He gave us meaning in our lives. Jenga reminded him. We had nothing and he helped us, gave us purpose and direction. We owe him our lives. He went over to the large Guandao blade and merged with it. I'm honoring that.
The other two nodded and picked up their new blades, Jinai with a large one-handed scythe blade with a chain attachment that latched onto his torso and Ryu with a straight sword that attached itself up to his elbow. Now my brothers, let's go. Hansa said, readying for what might be his final assault.
Squad 14 Barracks. Amagai, Kibune.
Love called out to his second and third, Ganju already by his side.
Ganju heard some interesting news.
The Shiba man stepped forward and kept his face impassive, despite the anger he felt toward the traitors. One of my sources recently informed me of an illegal weapons deal going on in one of the old abandoned training grounds, and in one of the seedier alleys of Siriidii. Kibune seemed excited at the idea of a challenge while Amagai seemed more focused on doing his task. The head captain has made it clear that he wants these weapons disposed of as soon as possible. For the safety of the citizens of Seoul Society. Now, Ganju will lead Kibune to scout the alleyways while Amagai and myself will check the old training grounds.
Sir, if I may. Kibune started, gaining the wizard's attention. What are these illegal weapons? Abominations called Bakoto.
Love answered, making the two stiffen ever so slightly.
You have your orders. Move out.
World of the living.
Hayori was eating chips and watching the monitors, keeping track of everything important in Karakura town.
The hospital, the parks, the area around the base, the homes of the main officers, Karakura High School, all with scanners to pick up hollows, Fullbringers, Quincy, and most recently, Bakoto. Eventually, the Bakoto sensor started going off with several pings coming up, then more all over the city. Idly, Hayori ate another potato chip and started typing away, and leaned back again without any sense of urgency.
Should I make popcorn?
She asked aloud to no one as a large battalion of Kasumiyaji assassins appeared.
Nah, it'll be over soon.
She sent a message warning of the attack and got ready to watch the battle.
Fullbringers, Jericho.
The elderly Fullbringer was enjoying some late-night tea, a pastime he was finally able to enjoy again now that things had settled down with the Fullbringers. Not for the squad, but he did some more experiments with his powers and found himself able to take his leisure so long as he was smart. He made his precautions so he was not concerned with the dozens of assassins closing in around him.
I'd advise against any violence or talking,
he suddenly said before the first assassin could attack.
Also, don't stray too far away from me. 100 meters to be precise.
Several of them ignored the warning and tried to cut Jericho to bits, getting consumed by the flames of time as a result.
I did warn you,
he answered as the assassins watched in shock of their allies dying so easily.
I have set up multiple contracts that keep you here and me safe.
1. So long as I show no aggression, I cannot be harmed by an outside force for half an hour.
2. So long as I speak honestly with you, you cannot speak for 45 minutes.
3. So long as I stay put, you are all trapped in this 100-meter radius around me for half an hour. 4. So long as others are aware of these contracts, every new person is subjected to them as soon as they enter my range. He paused to take a drink while the assassins fidgeted, trusting that they were now stuck. Though, all of that will make little difference.
Since, 5, those that are clearly identified as my enemies will be consumed by the flames of time after 5 minutes.
Karakura Hospital. Ryukin took in a drag of his cigarette, letting the burning tobacco calm him down from his latest surgery. His workload lightened up after Masaki and Kane woke up, and Masaki did some help in training their young Quincy, so he didn't have to worry about that.
However, a lightened workload didn't mean anything in his chosen profession got any easier.
Humans still prove themselves as very fragile, and he was just done dealing with one particularly risky surgery. A girl that was born with a weak heart valve, resulting in a very fragile body. He's going to keep an eye on her progress, but for now, he needed to relax. A group of assassins appeared behind him and were immediately shot down with a barrage of arrows.
Thank you, Kane,
the Quincy master said, extinguishing his cigarette as his wife came to him, carrying a bucket of ice with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I'm in no mood for these weaklings.
You've had a rough day, she responded with a quick kiss on his cheek. Time to relax.
With the Kurosaki girls, Yuzu, Karen, and Masaki were heading home from some late-night grocery shopping. Ichigo was able to come home a lot because Ishin was doing his son's work on top of his own, and Ishin hasn't been able to spend nearly as much time with his family as he used to. They made it easier by coming to visit him every so often and have the occasional family dinner at a family restaurant, today being reserved for a home-cooked family meal. Everything was going all right, despite sensing the massive influx of disturbed Ryatsu. Putting their faith in Ishin's squad, they ignored the issue and went about their day.
How about we have udon tonight? Masaki suggested, earning a cheer of approval from her daughters. Want me to help, Mom?
Yuzu asked, always ready to help in the kitchen. Masaki beamed at her child. Of course you dash. She stopped when a group of assassins got too close for her liking. She disappeared in a burst of speed, leaving Karen to catch the bag before it fell, and quickly crushed the would-be attackers. Barely 3 seconds after she first moved, she returned to her original position.
Of course you can, Yuzu.
Karen noticed a small change in her movements that showed she exerted herself.
"You okay, Mom?"
she asked, earning a tired sigh from the Quincy.
"I'm still rusty, it seems,"
she said, just as the 5 attackers slammed onto the road behind them.
"Foolbringer, Jackie."
The Foolbringer was covered in mud, sludge, and blood as she partook in the fighting. Taking advice from Ichigo and Sato about her over-reliance on speed and power led her to pick up a proper fighting style. She chose capoeira and spent all of her spare time learning the style, doing her damnedest to be able to keep the flow as she increased the speed and power. She swerved and flipped around the attacks of the assassins, all of whom basically replaced their hands with swords as they all wielded Bakoto, and used the force of her spinning and flips to smash her reinforced dirty boots against her opponents. She broke bones and snapped blades, which made her enemies pour their rancor into their Bakoto and consuming their arms and torsos, as they continued to converge on the Fullbringer. She watched as the flesh of the Bakoto spread on her enemies and got a sense to get out of there.
"Clean boots,"
she whispered, all of the gunk and mess on her just falling off. Her ultimate defense, born of the happy memories she had with her boots before they were stained in her family's blood. So long as she focuses on those memories, then her boots remain clean and herself, untouchable. Her white raiment Fullbring now shined with a clean brilliance as she walked through the assassins. Those still conscious as they attacked her were more and more consumed by their Bakotos, catching aflame and absorbed by the abominations. Within seconds, she was surrounded by corpses and hostless parasites. This is disgusting," she said, trying to hold her food down.
"Lisa versus Jinnai. Now, let's see,"
the co-third seat of the squad said, double-checking the statistics of their current situation. She was currently sitting outside of the barracks, stargazing, when the attack came. "The Kasumiyaji assassins outnumber us by about 1.5 of our current number, many of whom are losing pretty quickly to our soldiers with the Fullbringer assists." She checked off some points on her tablet designed by Hiyori to be the most advanced soul tracker, second only to her computer system. There are 4 major Bakoto wielders. It's Captain Ishin's family time, Lieutenant Ichigo and Orihime still in Soul Society, so that leaves Yuryu, Sato, and Tatsuki as our usual top fighters.
"But that's 3. Well, what do I have here?" Jinnai asked loudly, revealing his presence. "An officer of this squad 15, I presume?"
He brandished his Bakoto scythe, making the chain rattle to instill fear into his opponent.
Except Lisa wasn't paying attention. "Maybe I could get Ichigo to do that thing I've been wanting to try if I actually fought. It has been a while,"
she was muttering to herself before Jinnai swung his scythe blade at her. Once it got within range, she deftly lifted her blade and blocked the attack with ease. Pulling his Bakoto back, Lisa gently put her tablet down, taking note of several of her squad members' racial signatures getting weaker by the second and some flecks of wetness on her cheek. She wiped her cheek and found blood on her fingers. "Maybe you assassins, with your Bakoto, are actually a concern." She began to unsheath her blade.
"How about I crush you here for your mistreatment of my comrades? Don't look down on me, Soul Reaper."
The imp-like man cried out before bringing the spine of his Bakoto blade to his mouth and biting off a chunk, chewing quickly and devouring the metal.
The second he swallowed, a dark malevolent energy pulsed from his body.
Blades erupted from his body, straight swords from his back and curved sickles from his forearms and shins. "Witness my Retsurai, and tremble at your impotence." Jinnai shook with ecstasy with the power coursing through him. Hanza told him that the Bakoto were powerful, and they became so much stronger in recent times, but he didn't expect this. It was intoxicating, he craved it, needed it, but first he needed to defeat the Shinigami before him. Lisa glared at her opponent and immediately had to dodge as he sent a flurry of blades to tear her apart. They were faster than she anticipated as she successfully avoided the blades, but her clothes were torn and she had numerous light scratches. "I think it's time someone showed you real strength." She slammed the hilt of her blade and mouth of her scabbard together.
Smash, Haguro Tanbo.
She spun her Zanpakuto as it extended and grew into her long pole arm spade. Before Jinnai could remark on the massive weapon, Lisa slammed the ball end of her weapon into his gut and angled it so that he'd be sent skyward. He managed to right himself and land on the roof of a tall building, with Lisa calmly walking towards him on the air.
"Damn Soul Reaper.
Jinai cursed and he ate another part of his Bakoto, causing more blades to erupt from his body and turn his skin into metallic scales. He fired another storm of blades at Lisa, prompting her to spin her spear and swing it like a fan. The air pressure deflected all of the blades, making them fly past her harmlessly, and she threw her spear toward the imp of a man. Jinai leaped to the side, avoiding the blade, only to encounter Lisa's foot as she kicked him in the face. After tumbling for a few feet, he roared in pain and anger and began eating more and more of his Bakoto. His teeth became shark-like blades, his scales became metal, and every part of his body had a blade. So this is a Bakoto, Lisa thought as the fleshy attachment on Jinai's stomach dug into his body. They must be destroyed. She summoned her mask and opted to end the fight. Jinai spun toward her like a serrated tornado as Lisa retrieved her Zanpakuto. Just when he got into range, she swung her spade blade like an axe, cleaving Jinai in two from the waist. She watched the two pieces of the dead assassin in horror as the tendrils of the Bakoto reattached the two halves and turned Jinai's body into Reisher before absorbing its former master. Incredible power at the cost of your life and sanity. A sad death for a sad creature, she said before dropping down to the cursed weapon. She saw the thing look at her and attempt to move before she crushed it with her spear. Disgusting abomination. With Ganju, the third and fourth seats of the Rukon squad made their way through the empty alleyways of the Siriidii. Even with the influx of new recruits, the main city of Seoul society was far from crowded as most of the graduates went to either the Rukon squad or the Living World squad, which were in constant need of new recruits. Makoto took point while Ganju stayed in the back as he managed to guide them to a dead end. We've been searching for hours, the bespectacled man said, feeling annoyed at the probable wild goose chase. Are you sure our target would be here? Yeah, he's here, Ganju said, slowly and silently unsheathing his blade. He failed to hide the intent in his voice as Makoto's posture changed, showing that he caught on. Makoto Kibun, you've been found guilty of wielding the illegal weapon Bakoto. You're under arrest. The traitor turned and gave an arrogant smile to the Rukon noble. And they saw fit to send you? He asked as he unsheathed his blade. I'm actually insulted, but I suppose it fits. A noble of the Shiba clan, yet you are a pathetic dog compared to me. I never liked you. He got into his fighting stance as Ganju returned the scowl. Same here. I thought you were scum the moment I set my eyes on you. Tatsuki versus Ryukuzu. She danced through the many assassins that came after her in the park. They were quick, but training with Yoruchi and Squad 2 gave her plenty of experience on fighting assassins. She didn't want to waste her strength on small fry, but she was also hesitant because of what her Zanpakuto spirit said. Fire and heat hasn't hurt her since she gained her powers, but she was burning in her inner world. She knew she could beat these guys with ease, but she was still hesitant when fighting people trying to kill her. She was still out of their league, but she knew she should be beating them a lot faster than she was. So violent, a voice called out before a heavy mist swept in, and so strong. You must be one of the officers of the squad, are you not? The fog surrounded her and grew thicker by the second, obscuring her vision greatly. I'm Ryukuzu, just to let you know the name of the man that killed you. Where is he? Tatsuki thought worriedly, scanning all around her for her opponent. She saw a silhouette in the mist and was about to charge when a dozen others revealed themselves. She got herself ready to fight, but her heart was racing. She thought back to her inner world and the suffocating flames, to when that fat Arankar was trying to kill her, to her Zanpakuto calling out her weakness. She's fought with allies to her back, fought people trying to capture her, she was still not ready for people trying to kill her. A blade quickly cut her back as she was slow to react to the sudden attack. Why don't you just give up? The assassin taunted as dozens of blades appeared, connected to the mist. This battle was over the moment you were trapped in my Shirajiri's Mugen Kairo. The blades danced around her, striking at random and forcing her on the defensive. She pulled out her blade to the attacks she couldn't evade. But despite her best efforts, it was a battle of attrition. She felt like she would lose. Damn it, Tatsuki! She thought in anger, being on the defensive. You're better than this, you know that. She avoided a lethal cut, gaining a nasty gash on her arm.
Focus. What would Yoruichi do? What would Ichigo do? She wondered before something clicked, something her Zanpakuto asked her. What should I do? Suddenly she was no longer in that mist and that storm of blades, she was back in that burning field, staring straight at the flaming bird that was her Zanpakuto spirit. Do my flames mean destruction? She asked calmly, watching as her wielder stood up proud and unflinching in the inferno. They protect the people I care about and burn my enemies. She answered, stern and confident. What are you in your group? Ichigo is our leader, Chad our strength, Yuryu is our long-range fighter, Oraheim is our support, and me? She started, the fires building up around her. She returned to her present situation as the blades drew closer. I'm our heavy hitter. Her body began to glow brighter and brighter as she channeled her rapier into her limbs. Shunko! She yelled as she exploded, a massive ball of fire expanding from her center and consuming everything around her. The mist quickly faded and Ryukuzu was left defenseless as his concentration broke and was consumed by the burning wave. The raging flames died down and she was left in a smoldering field of embers. She soon collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily from exhaustion, and held up her blade to look at the spirit's steel. Looks like I need to work on that Shunko thing a little more. What do you think hit Ori? She felt the blade vibrate in approval as she passed out with a smile on her face. Kuzu was barely hanging on to life, dragging himself toward the unconscious Tatsuki with the intent to kill her. His mission of vengeance ended when a blade removed his head. Get some rest, Tatsuki, Lisa said, finishing the assassin and recovering the fifth seat. Ganju vs. Kibune. The fight was not going well for the Shiba man. Kibune proved his skill by being faster and stronger than Ganju, especially with what seemed to be a psychokinetic control of his Zanpakuto Reppu. The most Ganju could do was block and dodge, and his strength was waning. He figured being in a more confined space would give him an advantage and limit the flying ability of the glaive, but it was more agile than he thought and Kibune was kicking his ass, literally. Not just using his Zanpakuto but a variety of kicks kept Ganju from mounting a proper defense. He kept moving, and drawing circles on the ground and walls. So, out of curiosity, Ganju started when Makoto returned his Reppu to his hand. What's the endgame here? What's the ultimate goal? Kibune smirked arrogantly as lime green rapier flared around him. Same thing I've always wanted, power, he said before sending Reppu spinning toward Ganju again. I've strived to become the most powerful Soul Reaper at the Academy. The top of every class, excel at every subject, but no one understood my worth. I was always passed up for squads by those so much weaker than myself. The spinning blade clipped Ganju's side as he tried to grasp the handle. When I did finally join a squad, I excelled once again. I killed more hollows than anyone, no matter what got in my way. I was never stripped of being a Soul Reaper, but I never gained that recognition I deserved for my power. His Reppu returned to his hand. When I was part of the expedition unit, I found the Kasumiaji and attained the power of the Bakoto. He revealed his left hand, already one with the parasitic weapon. I'm guessing that the real reason you Zanpakuto flies? Ganju asked, glaring at the fisheye on the weird thing attached to his hand as the flesh tendrils climbed further up his arm. I guess you aren't completely stupid, Makoto said, readying his weapon for another strike. But you are pathetic, just like that weakling brother of yours. Numerous small explosions went off on Reppu, covering him with sticky machi and playing havoc with his ear. Ganju didn't even smile as he invoked his strategy. My brother gave his life in a fight of honor, dying only because no one expected such an altered hollow that could possess and disarm Soul Reapers. Ganju said calmly as his Ryatsu grew stronger and stronger. Anyone could tell you why you never became an officer until the Gotii got desperate. Kibune poured his rapier into his Bakoto and pried himself free of the trap. And you just stomped on those ideals of a true Shinigami Makoto. I won't forgive you for that. He slammed the hilt of his blade on the ground and cried out. Renka Seppa-san. Dozens of sand pits and holes formed on the ground and walls, everywhere Ganju drew his spell. Erode, Asashika. Chad vs. Jenga.
The giant of a man was sitting on a bench, amidst a field of broken Bakoto and dead bodies, hunched over in prayer. After seeing so many consumed by their Bakoto, he thought he'd be able to free some by removing the parasite. He never knew how tight their grips on their hosts were, and the few he freed soon bled out from the missing limbs. He's familiar with the idea of giving one's life to a goal, promising his to help his friends, but he never saw such an instance of pointless sacrifice. The Kasumiyaji assassins should have learned this was a losing fight long ago. Why are they throwing their lives away now? His latest opponent, one of the last two major enemies, made his presence known. "Thank you for giving me the time to give due to the dead," Chad said as he stood up to face the man, slightly bigger than he was with a broader stature. "Though I must ask why you're all throwing your lives away like this? You must know you're losing." Most of the assassination unit believed that Kumoi would be better as the clan head. Jenga started, wanting to show his resolve to prompt his new opponent to take the fight seriously. Others want to present us as rogues so the Kasumiyaji won't be completely ruined after this comes crumbling down. For Hansa, he's never failed a mission and it's a matter of pride now for him. Even if it means his death, he'll try to kill someone close to Ichigo Kurosaki, or any member of this squad. My brothers and I were random thugs that he gave purpose to. But personally, he brandished the guandao attached to his arm. I want to have power and to test that power. Hansa gave me that, so I'll fight for him. Chad kept his eyes on the man as he pushed himself to his feet. I won't pretend to understand your friend, but I do understand you. He activated both arms of his full brain and got ready himself. But that doesn't mean that you'll win, or that you have a chance here. Chad shot forward with his bringer light while Jenga stabbed into the ground. All around the two of them shot up green energy, turning into stone walls and branching off to form a crude labyrinth. It didn't slow down Sato as he delivered a powered sidekick into Jenga chest and sent him flying. He broke through a couple walls before becoming embedded in one and sinking into it. Figures, they've upgraded. You hit harder than I expected. Jenga's voice echoed from all around him. And you're right. My Kakuyoku was improved to allow me to create my walls, however I wish, so long as they are stable. He said as more energy surrounded Chad, attempting to trap him in a stone prison. Also, he shot out for behind Chad. I merge with my walls. He stabbed at the Foolbringer's back, but he twisted just enough to only have a large tear in his shirt. That was the attack he saw coming. Another blade was coming straight for his head. He barely avoided decapitation and got a deep cut in his cheek. There was no time to breathe as more stabs came at him. He kept his shield arm at pace with the piercing strikes, trying to buy time until he could find the perfect chance to get his opponent out of those walls. Suddenly Jenga came at him with an overhead strike which Chad blocked, but a smirk on the assassin's face alerted him to a sinister plan. Coming at Sato was a spear of energy, too close for him to throw off Jenga and block. It was times like this he was glad for his training. Brazos Dobles, Giganti! He yelled out, turning his left arm into a shield, exactly like his right. He figured his right arm was to defend while his left was for attack, but he knew that would only go so far. He pushed himself to be able to change sword and shield, even having both arms be swords or shields. With his new shield, he deflected the energy and broke free of the stone. Taking advantage on Jenga's shock, he grabbed the blade and yanked him out of his walls. He then threw Jenga through the walls and back out into the open. The impact knocked the wind out of him and he was having trouble pulling himself back up, even with the energy he was pouring into his Bakoto. He was about to get back up when a foot pinned him to the ground. He sought his opponent and tried one last swing, giving every last ounce of himself to Kakuyoku. Brazo Izquierda del Diablo, Chad said, reverting his left arm back to his offensive power. Using it, he caught and shattered the blade of the Bakoto, leaving his opponent helpless. I know you'll never stop, so this is for your own sake. I'll make it quick. He grabbed Jenga's face and charged his power again. La muerte, he whispered, before destroying the assassin's head and leaving a skull crater. Chad rose to his full height again and offered a silent prayer for the soul of the recently dead. Ganju vs. Kibune. The battleground changed from calm to chaotic, Kibune's flying Reppu and Ganju's Asashika clashing for supremacy. The edge the Bakoto wielder had was the last as Ganju manipulated the sands around them to his will with a swing and wave of his blade. The former third seat sent his blade spinning toward Ganju, who blocked it with a sand wall. The sparks flying until it returned to Kibune. Most of his arm was engulfed by the Bakoto. They paused for a moment to catch their breaths, Kibune panting heavily while Ganju was hunched over. "For all of your abilities, you're still no match for me," Kibune said mockingly. "But since you seem to think to know why, what distinguishes me from a so-called actual Soul Reaper?" Ganju actually chuckled, gasping for air while laughing. "I said it was obvious, didn't I?" The noble looked and the man glaring at him. "It's in the job description of a Shinigami, protecting innocent souls. You said it yourself that you were always interested in power for its own sake, never for helping anyone. A true Soul Reaper fights for others, gains power to protect their allies, and is ready to give their life for those that can't defend themselves." He held up his blade, a gritty metallic bar slightly longer than his sealed cleaver. "Asashika gives me the ability to manipulate sands to my will. Awesome ability with the cost of taxing my rapier heavily. I use this power to help my allies, you just cut down anyone in your way." He yelled before stabbing toward Kibune, sending several streams of sand toward the traitor. He blocked the torrent of sand and used his telekinetic control over his Reppu to bring him to the sky. "And still so foolish," he yelled out, high above Ganju and seemingly out of his range. "Why tell me your power when I can counteract it?" He readied his blade for the next strike. "If that's a true Soul Reaper, then I'm glad to be in a different league. A conceited bastard to the very end," Ganju said before stabbing his blade downward. At the same instant, Reppu's form exploded into a shifting mass of metal particles, stabbing into Kibune's chest. Losing control, he dropped to the ground like a rock as more of the metal sand spread inside him. Grinding and polishing blades works by rubbing it against fine-grained stones, like whetstones or durable sandstone. What do you think happened every time my sand collided with your Reppu? Kibune glared at Ganju as he coughed up blood. Tiny grains of your blade came off and under my control. Like I said, sand. He pointed Asashika to Kibune and made one more swing, perforating his chest with the remains of the metal sand in his being. Never mock my family, especially my brother, you wannabe Soul Reaper. He turned and left the man to die of his wounds, ignoring his cries as the Bakoto devoured him. Yurio vs. Hanza. The Quincy kept careful watch on every major conflict from his vantage point atop the safe house. He sensed how the assassins began dropping much more drastically as the stronger members of the squad defeated the main Bakoto wielders, leaving only one notable fighter left. The same assassin that faced off against Captain Ishin, and he was coming straight for him. "You took your sweet time," Yuria said condescendingly, unconcerned with his opponent. "All of your allies are dropping like flies." He looked at Hanza and saw what the man became. The Bakoto was already wrapped around his upper body, leaving only his head and legs free of the tentacles, sweating and wincing as if he was in pain. "And you want victory so badly you're killing yourself for power." Hanza ignored him as he growled out a demand. "Where is your captain?" he yelled, glowing with lilac-colored energy. "If this is my end, it'll be by his hand." Yurio calmly stood up and pulled out a seal Schneider. "Today is his time with his family." The Quincy answered as he activated his blade. "Besides, you disappointed him too much in that last fight when you ran." Without any warning, Hanza attacked Yuria to no avail as the Quincy blocked the attack. "And seeing as I'll likely become the next captain of the squad, I should be more than a match for you." He forced Hanza back and started gathering rapier. "Don't mock me." Hanza flashed his paralysis light, but Yuria circled behind him. He swung behind him, creating a wave of energy as he tried to cut the Quincy, at the same time as Yuria cut across his back. He cried out in pain. He felt his Saiga start moving him according to his will. He willingly shattered the mirror on his blade and shot the shards toward Yuryu, while unleashing a massive blast of energy from the hole. He was hoping to distract the Quincy while using the ultimate power of Saiga, the nightmare illusion, to crush him with his worst terrors. "I believe you're done," he heard from above. He looked up to see his opponent with 5 arrows that he shot around him, each one a silver rod that harnessed rapier, held in place around him with spirit threads. He was about to move before an arrow destroyed the nucleus of his weapon, making the Bakoto wither away. He tried to move, but his legs were dead. He severed my spinal cord with that slash. He thought in terror as energy from each one of the rods bound him in place. I normally wouldn't be opposed to dragging this out, giving you a good fight, Yuria said as he floated in front of Hansa, next to one of his seal Schneiders. But, about 20 of my squad members are in need of major surgery and healing, and I'm only one of 2 qualified for those, as the rest are medics of varying skill, and our best healer is currently in Soul Society. He took out a Jinto capsule and got ready to pour the liquid rapier onto the blade. So take this as punishment for inconveniencing me and my father. Springer. He let a drop fall before disappearing. The last of Hansa was consumed in a massive explosion of light. Such a pain. The Quincy groaned as his gear returned to his hand and he pulled out his phone. This is 3rd CD Shida, gather what wounded you can and bring them to Karakura Hospital. We'll take care of the worst cases there. He finished the message to the squad before calling his father. Dad, we have critically injured Soul Reapers in need of surgery. Love versus Amagai. We're here. Love said. The captain and lieutenant made their way to an old training field, where Love said their lead for the arms dealer was. Love suddenly stopped and turned to face his lieutenant, his features the most serious they'd been in a long time. I'm not gonna bother being coy with you, Amagai, I know you have a Bakoto. Amagai eyes widened a bit before going stone-faced. And here I thought I kept up my ruse fairly well. He responded, feigning that he was unsheathing his blade and Bakoto when he was reaching for the papers he kept in his robes. You almost fooled me, but there was always something about you I didn't trust. Love continued before flashing in front of Amagai. Heido number 33, Sokatsui. He cast his Kido spell and engulfed Amagai in the pale fire. The traitor appeared behind Love, covered in small burns that were most prominent where his papers were. If it wasn't for Squad 12 getting a Bakoto sample and making a tracker for them, you'd probably have gotten away with none the wiser. Amagai scoffed as he pulled out his Zanpakuto and his tuning fork Bakoto blade. Though I gotta ask, why? What's your goal in all this? My goal is revenge. Amagai answered, ready to use the nullification power of his Bakoto. Against Genryusa Yamamoto, for Shinetsu Kisaragi's death. The name registered with Love, but he wasn't sure where he remembered it from. He was a loyal member of the Gotiei, served under Yamamoto, and his loyalty was repaid with his death. It was then Love recognized the name, the man that first investigated the Bakoto on behalf of Yamamoto. For his sake, to avenge my father, I will kill everyone involved with the Bakoto. He yelled out. Yamamoto, Kumoi, the whole of the Kasumiyaji clan, I will not stop until they're dead. You think the old man is involved with the Kasumiyaji? Love asked with a raised eyebrow. With the Bakoto? The Kasumiyaji made many suspicious and questionable moves, but Yamamoto refused to do anything, even after this so-called revolution that Soul Society is going through. And why else would he kill his subordinate? He asked, demanding answers from his captain. A small matter of adhering to the law that said he couldn't interfere with the affairs of the nobility, for starters. The Vizard responded. He also didn't want to become a tyrant, though his patience at reaching its limit with the nobility. As for why your father died, I doubt you'd believe me, so it'd be best to bring you to the old man in person. He said while unsheathing his blade. But you've been a naughty little bastard, disrupting the peace like this with your little vengeance mission. You need a timeout, kid. Slam, Tanguma dash. Before he could finish, Amagai tapped his tuning blade against the hilt of his Zanpakuto and Love paused. What was that? My Bakoto is Kumoi's masterpiece, able to cancel out other Zanpakuto in the area. Amagai answered with a confident smirk. Except for mine. Sever, Rika. He called out, turning his katana into a long white blade topped with a hook and a few shell-like pipes for his hilt. I have nothing against you, Captain Love. Honestly, I respect you. But you don't stand a chance against me now, so stand dash. You said you only cancelled my Zanpakuto, right?
Love asked, earning a nod from Amagai.
The next instant he was slugged so hard across the face he thought his neck was going to snap and sent spiraling through the air. "Too bad for you, there's no defense against the fist of love,"
he yelled out, shamelessly quoting one of his favorite manga.
Amagai bounced and rolled on the ground until he finally stopped himself, his vision already hazy from the punch.
"Let me school you on a few things, Amagai," the wizard said, flashing in front of Amagain and pulling him up by his throat.
1. Bankai doesn't automatically make you a captain, as only an idiot would deem that is enough. You should train to avoid using Bankai, become strong without relying on it.
2. Just because you cancelled my Zanpakuto, doesn't mean you cancelled my fists,"
he yelled before slamming his fist into Amagai's gut, sending him flying again. Once he managed to get up, he shook himself clear and focused on his fight.
Ban dash.
He readied himself to use his final release when Love's sword turned into a giant kanabo club with spikes instead of studs. He thought they were out of range of his Bakoto, so he chimed the blade again, with no results. Suddenly, Love was right in front of him.
"And 3? I'm a wizard boy," he said, just before bringing the club down on the man. Yamamoto's office.
The head captain was reading over the damning evidence and report from Tsukishima, already aware of the suicide mission against Squad 15. Ichigo and Oraheim were alerted, but Ichigo stated that he wasn't worried and the squad was ready for most anything practical for Soul Society. He was reading the report to determine who to send into the Kasumiyaji grounds and clean house. His musing was cut short when Love entered the room, dragging an unconscious and beaten Amagai who was bound tight with a Kido spell.
With zero tact, Love grabbed Yamamoto's cup of tea and splashed it in Amagai's face. "Wake up!" he yelled, smacking the traitorous lieutenant across the face.
Then Love realized what he did.
"Head captain, I can expel dash."
"Quiet," he said firmly and looked at Amagai, who was glaring at him.
"I assume there's a reason for this?"
Since it was the end, Amagai figured he had nothing to lose and spoke his mind.
"This whole Kasumiyaji conspiracy is my doing," he admitted.
"I promised Kumoi a place at the top of the nobility if he played alone. Give me a Bakoto and stir up enough trouble among the Gotiei to act unnoticed. Also I could kill you and the Kasumiyaji for the creation of the Bakoto and the man you murdered.
My father, Shinetsu Kisaragi."
He finished with a growl, waiting for a reaction from the man he knew was responsible for his father's death. Yamamoto said nothing as he stood up and went to a pile of files under the list of Kia.
He pulled out one folder and tossed it in front of Amagai. "Your knowledge seems to be lacking, boy," he said before freeing Amagai of his restraints.
"I admit to killing your father, but you are mistaken if you thought it was out of malicious intent. Should you read that you will know why I killed your father, but it will bring you pain," he warned before sitting back down. Hate coursing through Amagai's veins demand that he try to kill Yamamoto, but he had no weapons and curiosity demand that he look through that file. He took a deep breath and opened the file, proving Yamamoto correct.
Chapter 58, Crime and Punishment. Kumoi's Hidden Base. Kumoi finished the work that Rurikayo's takeover of the clan gave him. She wanted a full list of who did what jobs and if they were satisfied with them, ideas on how to improve life and working conditions around the Kasumiyaji house, dating possibilities for herself and her fiancé Shukanogi, stopping Ichigo from traumatizing the boy after hearing about the arranged marriage. She was taking her future role responsibly and everything he was building towards was collapsing around him. He didn't need her to take her role seriously, he needed her to let him have control of the clan. Now he finally had the chance to plan his next move and he found his base in ruins. The smiths and researchers were dead, the guards were dead, the Bakoto were destroyed, and there were no signs of anyone left. What is this?" he gasped in shock, seeing his base of operations in such a state. "What is going on?" "Righteous vengeance," he heard a familiar voice say. He turned to see Shusuke Amagai with his blade dripping with blood, Ichigo Kurosaki scowling at him, and Rurikayo glaring at him with disdain. "Gyokaku Kumoi, you've been found guilty of conspiring against Soul Society and for crimes against the Kasumiyaji clan," Amagai said, ready to continue his last mission of revenge. Komoi stepped back in fear before Enryu and Kenryu appeared behind him to hold him down.
You've overstepped your station, Komoi, Rurakayo said with disdain. You said you could keep the Kasumiyaji clan stable and productive. You betrayed that trust, and the family is taking quite the amount of damage to our reputation and standing among the nobility.
Komoi glared at the brat that he blamed for ruining everything.
You selfish little dash, he was about to continue before Enryu came close to breaking Kumoi's arm.
I have to go now,
Rurakayo said, turning with Ichigo following in tow. I have to repair all the damage you've done to the clan.
Lieutenant Amagai, finish your mission.
Shusuke stood in front of the man responsible for his father's death, 4 years of anger and hate, and raised his sword.
Why are you doing this? Komoi demanded, ignoring the pain the two attendants gave as they twisted his arms. I've done as you asked. You assured me everything would work out. I was always going to kill you, Komoi,
Amagai admitted, staring coldly as the old man's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. Everything I've done was so I could avenge my father's death. I only sided with you because I believed Yamamoto was conspiring with you, until he revealed the truth.
Komoi was consumed with despair as tears fell from his eyes. You were just a means to an end,
he said, just before bringing down his sword.
Las noches, Aizen study. Aizen watched the latest feed from his spy drones in Karakura town.
Nothing on Ichigo in particular, but plenty on his allies. The Fullbringers attained a higher level in their abilities, Tatsuki was growing stronger, and Yuria definitely showed potential to his claim.
Between them, the Bakoto wielders dropped like ants to a giant.
Something that did little to surprise him. Only the weak would consider sacrificing their lives for power like that, he said as he watched the last of the Bakoto assassins fall before re-watching the entire battle, the slaughter, that reminded him that Karakura town was now protected. He had a plan to get the main fighters away, but he needed the perfect chance to enact it, when the squad was truly occupied.
Soon, Tosen and Sailaporo came into his study. How are they coming along? The Espada ranks will have to be changed soon to accommodate the newest additions, Tosen told his master while the Arankar scientist giggled madly. They are coming along splendidly, Sail said in a flamboyant manner.
She's almost stabilized, and the boys are almost ready for their mission. He grinned proudly, expecting praise from his Lord Aizen, but his master remained silent.
How much stronger will that boy become?
Aizen wondered, watching the recording of Ichigo being informed of Oraheim's disappearance and retrieving her within minutes. Accelerate your progress, do whatever it takes to make him stronger. The two bowed and left, leaving Aizen to wonder how the Espada ranks will change.
With Yuryu, the aftermath of the battle was essentially clean up. Some assassins fled, almost like they were possessed, into the outskirts of Karakura town, so someone needed to hunt them down and destroy them.
The injured squad members became stabilized, so Yuryu volunteered to go out there himself, something about therapeutic venting. He shot himself into the outlying forest where the assassins were last spotted. He was alone until he reached the woods, when the Sternritters came along. So, is this another ploy to try and get into our good graces? Yuryu asked as they traversed the treetops. If you wanted to do that, you should have helped out when these assassins attacked. Maybe if we wanted to be suicidal, then we would've. Candace grumbled under her breath. The others heard it but chose to ignore her, in favor of the hunt. They situated themselves in a high tree branch and got set in each one of the cardinal direction, bows ready to snipe down the remaining assassins. We still don't trust Soul Society as a whole, Ishida, Basby said as the group found their prey and started shooting periodically. And what you said during that fight with Kuratsuchi? Yuria nodded his head. Your fight with him didn't exactly make you trustworthy among the Vandenrake. And mixed blood Quincy never had much respect or value among us either, Bambietta said, shooting an explosive arrow at the Bakoto of an assassin. Most of the Sternritter want to see Ichigo dead for being an abomination among Quincy. His Majesty was adamant, however. We must bring this wayward child back to the light, he says. The entirety of the Vandenrake praise him for his love and mercy, becoming more and more devout to his word.
Basby continued. Probably would still work on us, except you got us thinking. Funny how that tends to ruin stuff. Yurio muttered under his breath. I've personally have had a bad habit of luring guys into my bedroom with the promise of sex, and then I kill them. Bambietta said, ignoring Yurio's comment but shocking him enough to actually miss his shot. Aimed for the nucleus of the weapon and removed the guy's head. I can vouch for that, Candace chimed in, and always the cute ones. Point is, some of us kill each other, have lost families, but Yawach did nothing for us. Basby growled before calming down as he spoke. So why are we still so loyal? Were we conditioned? Do we have some small measure of gratitude to him we can't remember? Are we being controlled by him through his blood in our veins? We don't know. Until we do get an answer, we'll be siding with you. Candace said, doing a dramatic hair flip. No matter what. The Sternritters looked at Yuryu and he tried to find any trace of deception. He gave them an approving nod, if only to keep his enemies close so he could watch them. They resumed killing the remaining assassins when Bambietta spoke up. By the way, is Ichigo single? Married, actually, and his wife is willing to share if his harem is anything to go by. He said, without missing a beat. If you're interested, you'll have to gain their approval. He shot down the last assassin and dispelled his bow before looking back at the shocked expressions of the other Quincy. This was fun, goodbye. Captain's meeting, Amagai's trial. You stand accused, having admitted to this latest conspiracy in Soul Society, of treason, possession and use of illegal weapons, and threatening the whole of Soul Society by disrupting our war preparations against Aizen and Yawach. Yamamoto said as he listed off the offenses Amagai committed in the past few days. Amagai was sitting in the Seiza position in the center of the assembly. Your crimes are quite severe, how do you plead? Amagai himself looked up to the head captain, his own captain standing by the old man's side, and spoke with resolve and regret. I am guilty of all these crimes and more, sir. He said, condemning himself to the gathering of military leaders in the Gotiai. I allowed myself to be consumed with my anger and thirst for revenge that I came to a false conclusion out of a need to justify my hate toward you, sir. Never knowing the truth of the circumstances that led to my foolish actions. I understand the weight of my sins and will repent accordingly. He said, just before pulling out his Zanpakuto and prepared to plunge the blade through his body. His penitent suicide was stopped as Love punched his subordinate in the face once again. Amagai dropped his sword and was getting punched repeatedly and without mercy from the fist of Love. You think I'd be happy with you taking the easy way out? Love growled as he punched his foolish lieutenant again and again until he could barely move. He dropped Amagai to the ground, letting him cough up blood and spit out some teeth as Ikawa had to lecture his idiot second. You can kill yourself to avoid being captured by the enemy or when you sacrifice yourself to save your comrades, but not now. You're a member of the Gotiai 15, meaning you do not have control of your own life. It belongs to us to use in service of keeping the peace and stability of Soul Society and the protection of the balance of souls. You will die when you fall in battle or when your actions are truly unforgivable. Love said as he returned to his position among the captains. As Captain Ikawa has stated, taking your own life will hardly be penance enough for your actions. Yamamoto said as Amagai pushed himself up to look the old man in the eye, one of his was already swelling shut. You've shown how much you regret your actions, and under normal circumstances you'd be allowed to take your life to restore your honor. However, your selfishness cannot be tolerated as we need as many strong soldiers as we can get. You will live, forever bearing the weight of your sins until you fall in battle. Tessai stepped forward and hoisted the man to his feet before tearing open his shihakusho. Grit your teeth, this will hurt. He said, pointing with his middle and index fingers, both glowing with Kido. He lightly touched Amagai's chest and he screamed as if his heart was being torn from his chest. Tessai traced a pattern onto his body, every millimeter burning with an intense light as the Kanji 4 traitor was branded across his chest. The moment he finished, Amagai dropped and took a pained, shuddering breath as even that simple act caused pain. You will remember your crimes and that brand is laced with a seal that will prevent you from killing yourself. This is your penance as a soldier. Amagai was unresponsive as 2 guards dragged him away to the Division 4 barracks to recover,
the need for soldiers supersedes the need of just punishment.
As he was taken away, Urahara stepped forward. I think this was quite the eye-opening experience. The eccentric scientist said, with no jovial tone in his voice.
We're investigating the Rukon districts in our own number, but the nobility might be a problem if left to their own devices. There are some that certainly have enough clout to be an issue if they try to rebel.
Kamamura said, thinking back to some of the stories Tosin told him about his friend.
Then we crush it before the situation repeats itself.
Yamamoto declared.
Captains Kuchiki, Soifan, Yukitake, and Kairaku, the four of you are to investigate the nobility for any signs of treason.
Sir. The four captains responded as they got their orders. Kuchiki Elders Meeting. Kumoi has failed us.
One of the elders grumbled, bringing the disappointing news to his co-conspirators.
Even with our aid, his methods proved to be weak. Bah!
He was just the old caretaker of a mid-ranked noble family, we should have known better.
Another one said. We've kept the Kuchiki family and our traditions strong on our own strength.
Why should we ever rely on others to do what we've done in the past? I believe the ones responsible for poisoning that Rukon rat Hizana are still around. We just need to direct them toward Rukia this time. The room was filled with silent agreement before the room itself seemed to shift as Byakuya revealed himself from a veil of light that kept him invisible, shocking the assembly of elders.
Byakuya. How, when? Bakudo 26, Kyako. He's been watching for a while. Haven't you? Indeed. Byakuya admitted, before slowly pulling out his sword. Head Captain Yamamoto gave a recent order to investigate every noble house in Siriidii for any signs of treason. I started with my own and found this. The reveal that my wife died, not because of an illness, but because of poison. That they planned to repeat this with my sister, and that they partook in the Kasumiyaji conspiracy. I consign you all to death. He said, no emotions in his voice, his actions were smooth and cold, but there was a cold chill of hate and fear filling the room. You arrogant brat. We are the true masters of the Kuchiki clan. We've kept the family proud and strong while you broke the laws twice. You dare point your sword at us? As a member of the Kuchiki clan, no. That would be unthinkable. He said, bringing his sword in front of him and prepared to use his shuriken. But I am a captain of the court guard squads before I am a Kuchiki. Scatter, Senbun Zakura. His cherry blossom blades flew and attacked. An hour later, some attendants found their lord exiting the room of the elders and said one order. Please clean that up. The sight inside was horrific for them. Squad 15 barracks. Well, that was a way to spend the week. Ishin said as Ichigo, Oraheim and himself returned to the barracks. Conspiracies, assassinations, trials, I forgot how stiff things could go. I can't wait to get home. Then Lisa came by and whispered something into his ear, making Release a sigh, but it seemed happy. But I still have something I need to do. Ichigo, you and your friends are on leave until further notice. He said before going into his office, as his friends and fellow seated officers of the squad came by. Most of them were fine, except Tatsuki had a bit of a limp and was wrapped in bandages. I personally do not know how to take that. Ichigo said, having spent most of his life training or studying. Why are we taking a break anyway? Probably because our recent displays of ability may dissuade Aizen for the foreseeable future. Yuria said before Hiyori stuck her head out. Urahara sent a spy drone into Hueco Mundo that even he and Yoruchi can't find unless he activates a fail-safe that sends it right back to him. Said that the latest info was that Aizen wasn't ready for another assault yet. She went right back into her room, leaving the teens to their plans. Okay then. Ichigo said, facing his friends. We have free time, what do we do? Immediately Oraheim and Tatsuki latched onto his arms. We get some much-needed date time. Tatsuki said with a smirk while Oraheim giggled. Yeah, that sounds good. Yuria conceded before pulling out his planner. I should be spending more time with my girlfriend too. Ninu's getting irritated. He noticed everyone was looking at him. What? Didn't she kidnap you? Chad felt like reminding him. And try to have her way with you?
That was Mayuri's doing.
We kind of hit it off,
Yuria said, slightly embarrassed. Ignoring that she's artificial, good for you, man. Ichigo said as the rest of them began to leave.
So, any ideas come to mind, girls?
He asked before Ishin's office door opened.
Thank you, Captain.
A happy-go-lucky voice called out that was familiar to the hybrid.
Don't worry, I remember what the LT taught me. I won't disappoint,
she said as Ichigo saw her. She had purple hair, tied in a ponytail by a red ribbon, and amber eyes. The moment their eyes met, her face exploded into a massive grin.
Ichigo! I came back!
She cheered as she glomped him.
Senna!
He asked in shock as his memories fully returned, as everyone who saw her had their memories restored.
Welcome back, rookie, he said, patting her head and making her beam at him.
Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers.
Captain's Return, Urahara.
So Mayuri, you've likely been busy, so Urahara started as he was making his way back through his old barracks, most of the squad happy to see his return. He was making his first plans, which needed Mayuri, who was currently staring at Ichigo's severed arm and giggling madly.
Put that down before you go blind,
he said, smacking the psychopath and gaining his attention.
Now, I need to get up to date. Show me everything the 12th has been up to since my exile.
The former captain, now lieutenant, thought nothing of it and handed over the master password to Urahara.
5 minutes later.
The SRDI was being consumed by raging flames as Shinigami ran about in a panic. The fire patrol and most of the other captains came by to see Mayuri gagged and limbless, a fuel canister next to Urahara, and the man himself with the most disgusted and horrified look on his face.
Kisuk? Kayaraku asked hesitantly. What happened?
Urahara looked at him with a dead expression, scaring the old captain worse than Nanao without her glasses.
You don't want to know. Captain's Return, Ishin. So yeah, I might have to close down the clinic for a while. Ishin was telling Ryukin while Ichigo went to inform the Wizards about the return to Soul Society. Maybe I'll be back in the living world, but I probably won't have the time to run the clinic anymore.
They'll have to go to your hospital for treatments and dash.
Don't worry, Ishin. Ryukin responded, pouring out some whiskey for the two of them in celebration of their wives' reawakening.
Like I told Yuryu, my concerns will be with the living.
That house by yours is for sale, right?
He asked, making Ishin rub his chin in thought. No, but that old lady is considering. He answered as he took a look at his amber liquor.
When she does, I'll open an emergency clinic there.
I'll deal with the living, you deal with the spirits,
Ryukin said, raising his glass. Ishin smiled and clinked their drinks. Thanks, old friend. Chapter 59, Romances Among the Living. Oraheim's date, Day 1, late afternoon. What should I wear?
Oraheim thought to herself, standing in front of her mirror in cream white and pink underwear, trying to pick out an outfit to her movie date. After deciding to use their free time to get in some bonding and meeting Senna for the first time, they decided to let Oraheim get first dibs while Tatsuki and Senna went out shopping.
There was a re-showing of My Neighbor Totoro as a special event and her brother got them tickets to go see.
She grabbed a light pink sweater and a dark rose-tinted skirt, figuring it suited her personality before dressing up and meeting her date. She found him waiting in the park, seemingly asleep to the outside world. He had a pair of black jeans with a navy blue shirt with a white 15 on it with a black hoodie jacket. He seemed to be at complete peace with the world around him that no one noticed his presence. She made her way toward him and he got up the moment she was just a few feet away.
Hey Oraheim, ready to go?
He asked with a smile. The sight of him actually calm and happy warmed her heart. Ever since she learned the full weight of his mission and goals she has worried for him, but every time she sees that smile she's reminded of his strength.
In both power and will.
He gently took her hand almost seamlessly and they began their trip to the movies. She thought about the other movies, but she felt this was the most relaxing of the films she had to choose.
Plus, it's Hayao Miyazaki, the man can do no wrong. Let's go! She cheered with a smile as they made their way to the theater. The walk was soothing, his presence was much more calming than before. Before, it was strong and intimidating, but now? He made her feel so much safer just by being there. She knew strength from her training and understood the drive of the fighter, having collected the other two elemental spirits out of a desire for power in combat, Terra and Ventus, during her time at Soul Society. Urahara let her use one of their training halls in exchange for studying the exorcist fighting style. But even with how far she got, she knew she was far from matching the man that captured her heart, and that spurred her further. They made it to the movies and got in to watch the anime classic. Heh, almost reminds me of myself and Yuria when we were younger. Ichigo muttered, watching the film as the two sisters were running around screaming. Happier memories before Soken passed away. Oraheim saw something else, the family she wished they would have together. Herself, Tatsuki, Rukia, Ranjaku, and recently Senna, all looking after their kids as they play and laugh together, waiting for their father to return home from his job as the new captain commander. She admits to being annoyed by girls other than Tatsuki being his lovers, but Ranjika gave a new perspective of not love rivals, but new friends. She enjoyed sharing among friends, but now was her time with one of her favorite people. The movie ended and they went for a walk near a lake in the park. That was better than when I first saw it. Oraheim chuckled as they talked about movie and what they enjoyed. That was something I needed. Ichigo said with a deep sigh. Thanks for this, Oraheim, it was nice. She leaned into his side and he wrapped his arm around her, basking in the fading light of the setting sun. She just sighed in contentment, feeling her stomach and praying for a swift end to the wars and battles ahead, so she could make that wish of a family a reality. Tatsuki's date, Day 2, evening. Ready? Tatsuki asked, dressed in her martial arts gi with Ichigo standing across from her in similar attire. Oraheim wanted a soft and calm date while Tatsuki preferred to get a lot more physical. Oraheim fixed up her body and she was aching to see how she stacked up against her old sparring partner. She took to Akuta like a fish to water and was trained by whom everyone considered as the greatest martial artist in all of Soul Society. I'm ready. Ichigo responded, popping his shoulders with a few last stretches. He was trained by whom everyone accepted as the strongest Soul Reaper. Now it was time to test their skills. Within an instant, they were exchanging punches and kicks. Tatsuki was on the offensive trying to find a crack in Ichigo's defenses as he swiftly blocked every strike. It took her a moment before she noticed something was off. She started using more advanced moves, but Ichigo was still using basics. She purposefully got them in a deadlock and demanded an answer. Come on, Ichigo, she said with a tomboyish smile. You're training under the oldest captain. What has he been teaching you? She finished, noting that while she was breathing somewhat heavier, Ichigo didn't change. Gramps didn't teach me anything, he said honestly, puzzling the martial artist. He says I needed to refine my skills, starting with basic punches, kicks, swings, and stabs. Tatsuki would have complained, but she remembered hearing about Bruce Lee stating that he didn't fear a man that had practiced 10,000 kicks once, but he did fear a man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. The thought hadn't occurred to her recently because she still needed to work on controlling her fire powers, something Yoruchi thought would be aided by having a Zanpakuto. Without saying anything, she pulled out a couple of cinder blocks and tossed them at Ichigo. Years of martial arts training allowed her to trace the punches he threw, and she was in awe. Something in her screamed that it was a near-perfect strike that broke the concrete blocks apart, no wasted movements and just enough to prove the point. Well, looks like I should get back to basics myself, she said with a smile, happy to see how strong that crybaby from when they were kids had become. Wanna help me out? She asked with a come-hither tone and trying to make walking with a martial arts gi look sexy. According to Ichigo's subtle growl, she succeeded. The rest of the day was spent trying to perfect her motions, while rubbing against each other as much as possible. Senna's date, Day 3, afternoon. Come on, Ichigo, Senna called out while running on ahead into the amusement park, the Disneyland in Tokyo. The other girls in Ichigo's love life decided to let her have a date with him considering she died for his sake, not to mention that she and Oraheim really got along.
She was wearing a yellow long sleeve that clung to her figure along with a dark brown skirt. On her shirt was the spiral of the Shiba clan since Kokaku adopted her into the clan as well. Ichigo had a black shirt with an emblem of his hollow mask on his chest with camouflage cargo pants. She insisted on an amusement park because she wanted actual memories of her own, and it was her first date when they went on that Ferris wheel so long ago.
I missed that girl,
he thought to himself as he followed her into the park. They rode rides, played games, ate food. Ichigo was absorbed into Senna pace as she frolicked like a child and acted like a caring sister to everyone around her. She clung to his arm as she dragged him around the park, and although he was embarrassed a few times, he was enjoying himself quite a bit.
The day wore on until the final hours of sunlight and they ended up in a Ferris wheel yet again.
Thanks for putting up with my selfishness, Ichigo, she said, leaning against him with a large bag of their game prizes sitting across from them.
This is what I wanted to do after coming back to life. Ride another Ferris wheel?
Ichigo guessed sarcastically, knowing it wasn't the right answer.
You really like high places.
She giggled before pulling away and standing up, balancing on Reisher. Yes, I do, but mainly, I wanted to relive my happiest memories that I knew were mine. She started, looking off in the distance all around her. It hurt, learning that the memories I had weren't my own. That I lived 1,000 different lives of other people with no real past to call my own. Her tone was somber, sad as she remembered the sense of so many different memories playing in her mind. I was scared that I would fade away, the memories of so many people without my own identity.
And when we came to my grave, you lied to me.
Ichigo froze in shock as she revealed that she knew her name wasn't there in the end. My name wasn't engraved on that stone, but it was in your heart and the hearts of everyone in Squad 15. She turned around and gave him a beaming smile. You gave me a past, a proof of my existence as my own person. I'm not too sure what I technically am, but I can be sure of this. I am Senna Shiba now, proud member of Squad 15, and protector of the human world. She announced proudly, prompting a small applause from the hybrid. She took a slight bow because her expression became more nervous.
Now, there's just one more thing I need to do. Something I couldn't do last time,
she said with a burning blush on her face. Without giving him a chance to do anything, she pressed her lips against his and held them there.
After a few seconds, she pulled away smiling while glowing pink from her blush. I love you, Ichigo, she said, happy to do the one thing she was denied before.
Ichigo merely smiled before pulling her in and showing her how to really kiss.
Las noches, Arena. Well, Ulquiorra, how do you think this will go? Aizen asked his more trusted Arrancar. In the center of the arena was Grimmjow and an effeminate, youthful Arrancar.
He was Luppy, the Arrancar assigned as the new sixth to replace Grimmjow after his public shaming.
All the Arrancar received training, and Luppy was directly trained by Jin. This was a contest to see whether Grimmjow could earn back his place as an Espada after his training with Ulquiorra.
The whole of Las Noches was in attendance, watching with varying levels of interest.
Jin and Tosen were with Ulquiorra and Aizen, watching from his throne. I feel this is needlessly cruel,
Ulquiorra said, sparing a glance to Ikimaru.
You should have put more restrictions on the fight. Grimmjow was swerving around 8 massive tentacles that frantically slammed, stabbed, and wrapped around the panther, with a look of fury and desperation on Luppy's face.
I suppose I should have had Grimmjow lose his arms again. The traitor captain sighed.
Jin, I'll have to punish you later for half-assing Luppy's training.
The boy let his rank get to his head. Jin said with his dark smile. I figured this would serve as a good reminder that he should lose that arrogance. Grimmjow moved with a grace that he forgot when he took on a human form, remembering his hollow form, and practically danced through all of Luppy's attempts to strike him. They were on opposite ends of the arena when Luppy charged a Siro from each of his tentacles. Just as he was about to discharge the attack, he found Grimmjow's fist buried in his gut. The boy coughed up blood and glared at the panther, hate growing as he stared into those apathetic eyes of the former, and now current, sixth Espada.
Winner, Grimmjow,
Aizen said, no surprise in his voice, just stating a fact.
As the panther was leaving the arena, a dark smile appeared on Aizen's face. Grimmjow, would you like to be the fifth Espada?
There was a gasp of surprise among some of the Espada.
What the hell? The current fifth Espada, a lanky tall man with an eye patch and a spoon-hooded jacket named Noitora Gilga, demanded.
Luppy was pathetic, but do you really think that disgraced bastard has a chance against me?
Sure, whatever. Grimjow said, again showing apathy toward his opponent.
This only pissed Gilga off more as he grabbed his blade, an odd axe with two crescent moon blades on top of each other.
He jumped down to the arena while two random Arankar removed Luppy's unconscious body.
You looking down on me, Grimjow? The hooded man asked. You think you're better than me just because you got your rank back? Grimjow merely shrugged. I personally just stopped caring about ranks and all that, he said, cracking his knuckles and shaking his arms.
Now, I want something else.
Tosin tapped his sword on the ground to signal the start of the fight. The two charged at each other, Noitora swinging his axe while Grimjow readies a punch. The blade came at his side, which he caught with his bare hand, then the shaft of the axe handle before pulling himself closer to Noitora and slamming a foot in his gut. Grunting from the hit, the fifth Espada tossed his weapon away with Grimjow still holding onto it before grabbing onto the chain attached to it. He swung around his axe, slamming it into the walls and floor, believing that Grimjow was still attached to the weapon. He never noticed until Grimjow was right in front of him again, wearing a psychotic grin on his face. The panther slammed his fist into Noitora's face and sent him tumbling back before using Sonido to catch up and grab him by the skull.
Grimjow slammed Noitora's face repeatedly into the ground before spinning to build up momentum and throwing the fifth Espada like a baseball.
He slammed into the wall and could only watch as Grimjow closed in on him. His eyes were hungry, his grin was savage, and his prey was right in front of him. The panther unleashed a barrage of punches, pounding Noitora deeper and deeper into the wall, before one last strike that turned that spot into a crater. The dust settled and Noitora fell to the ground. Everything was mute as Grimjow raised his foot to crush the Arankar's head before turning and walking away.
Again?
He growled in his mind.
Pity from my opponent? From you, Grimjow.
That bitch Neliel was higher in rank, but you're beneath me, you bastard. He unleashed his Ryatsu and pulled the chain to bring his blade to him. Pray, Santa Turdash, he prepared to use his resurrection before noticing a blade in his chest, just millimeters from piercing his heart. He followed the blade to see Jin smiling, with Aizen's disapproving look. I declared the match over Noitora, he said calmly, with enough steel to remind everyone why he's their king.
Grimjow is now the new fifth Espada.
You will become the seventh, he said, shocking the former fifth.
Seventh?
I didn't fail so badly that Zamari can surpass me, Noitora protested, glaring at a dark-skinned bald Arankar and daring him to challenge the beaten man.
No, Zamari will become the eighth,
Aizen announced, with the Arankar in question nodding in acceptance. She's grown much stronger, so she will be sixth.
Noitora's eyes widened and he growled in fury as Aizen continued.
I'm well aware of your history with her.
I figure this is a fitting punishment for your misconduct in this fight. Dismissed.
The trio of Soul Reapers left the Arankar to their devices as Jin spoke up. Sixth is a rather lucrative position for what is going to be a babysitter captain,
the fox said with his usual teasing tone.
It's delivering proper justice and punishment for Noitora and Sael's actions against their comrades so long ago. Tosin spoke, giving his opinion on the matter. He wanted to punish the two when they betrayed the former third years ago, but Aizen said that it would be for the best. That girl was not a fighter at heart. She was disposable then, now he has a use for her. Intimidation is all well and good, Aizen started as he caught a glimpse of the girl in question, but she has experience with children.
Neliel will do nicely once we have them. Candace's date, day 4, afternoon. How did this happen again?
Ichigo asked himself, sitting in front of the changing rooms at the Karakura Mall. He was just walking around, minding his own business, when Candace Catnip literally grabbed him by the collar and dragged him to the mall. I'm questioning my loyalty to someone who was supposed to be like a god to me and it may cost my life. I need to go on a shopping bender and you're coming. That's what she said when she dragged him to their current location. He's been waiting for about 10 minutes before the curtain opened.
How's this?
she asked, standing confidently with a tan jacket and lightning yellow shirt that showed off her midriff and a pair of tight jeans. Ichigo looked it over for a few seconds before nodding in approval, making Candace smile and returned to the changing room to try the next outfit.
Can I get an explanation for why this is happening?
Ichigo asked as she began to change.
Why me? Why now? What's going on?
Yuria said you guys were developing a slight change of heart.
We're interested in staying alive, Kurosaki. She responded, trying to decide between shirts.
We've had recordings to watch of your fights in Soul Society before Urahara managed to lock the majority of us in a separate dimension. She came out in a slight punk/military look.
Similar to her usual uniform, except much more professional looking.
You went into Soul Society for a girl you barely knew. Your power is incredible and you're a skilled fighter, plus you've the body of a god. She said, striking a pose for Ichigo to evaluate.
Maybe throw in some black lipstick to complete it.
He suggested, making her look in the mirror and consider it. It was more than saving Rukia, though that did play a huge role in me being there. It was about warning Yamamoto about Yawacha's return. My own Quincy blood hates that guy. That's pretty evident with you and Ishida blatantly declaring your desire to stand against him. She remarked, thinking about the next outfit to try on. To this day, no one really knows how you, your sisters, and Yuria survived the holy selection. Most of us saw it as His Majesty's mercy, but the three of us have our doubts.
As for why I'm doing this with you?
I think it's obvious that most of the Vandenrake falls into two categories:
sadistic and psychopathic.
It wouldn't surprise me if most of the Sternritters actually turn on each other while killing as many Shinigami as we could.
I've actually thought about turning on Bambi a few times.
Seriously?
Why?
Ichigo asked, honestly confused. These people were supposed to be family and allies, how screwed up could they possibly be?
This one member of our little clique? She's completely insane. Scares everyone.
She said, thinking about Sternritter Z with a shudder. And she's obsessed with Bambi. On a cheerier note, we have only so long before the Quincy rise back up for war, so I want to hook up with the best guy available before that. With you, Bambi and I can at least make it seem like we're trying to follow Yawacha's orders to bring you back to the Quincy. She opened the door to reveal the lime green t-shirt and jeans she started in. Besides, I wouldn't mind being one of your bitches at least.
Gotta take care of a warrior's needs, right?
She said with a sultry smile, making him go bug-eyed.
You saw that?
He asked, slightly mortified. All the Femritters saw that. She said, walking by him before leaning to his ear and whispering.
Very nice, by the way.
She walked away, feeling that impromptu date went rather well, for her.
Bambietta's date, day 5, late afternoon.
This is certainly fitting, for some reason. Ichigo said to himself as he surveyed the terrain. Bambietta showed up to drag him away, much like Candace did, but after going through this once already he just walked beside her as she decided what they would be doing. They were running around town for hours before he asked if she knew where she was going. His answer came in the form of an embarrassed blush as she exploded at him, never going on an actual date in her life. After getting her to calm down, they went to a place he felt she would appreciate.
A paintball course, one that Urahara was involved with. How did he know?
It was a huge part of the forest with plenty of natural and man-made obstacles with very light rules. Don't shoot the head if the hood's down, paint splotches the size of an American quarter count as dead, melees only count if the paint on the blades are still wet, and bring your own false blades. It was expensive and usually reserved for military, police special forces, and combat fanatics.
Just like that psychopath to do.
Bambietta agreed because she wanted to let off steam in her usual violent manner, but she wasn't allowed to use her script in Karakura town. The two dressed up in heavy camouflage with realistic gun models, 2 for each of them, and a dull rapier blade of their usual swords. Some questioned Ichigo's massive cleaver, but chose not to pry further when he proved his association with Urahara. So here he was, with an M16 assault rifle, 9mm pistol, and his blade, against another Quincy elite with a Glock 9 pistol, Vector SMG, and her Dao saber, and many grenades.
Now let's see how this goes.
He heard from above as a grenade exploded red paint to shower him. He left a speed clone behind with Sonito as he leveled out with Bambietta, 50 feet in the air. He pulled out the assault rifle and fired 10 shots that she managed to avoid before she copied with her SMG. They danced an aerial waltz, moving around at high speeds while exchanging bullets all the while. After nearly a minute of high speed in the sky, they ran out of paintballs. As they landed, she pulled out 3 grenades and threw them at Ichigo, making him bat away 2 and shield himself from the third. He charged at her and made a slash across her stomach, which she was too slow to dodge. She looked down to the marking, only to find herself clean of paint. Curious, Ichigo looked at his blade. "Ah, flung it all off," he said, noting the very thin coat of dried paint on his rapier blade. Bambietta looked at her own, still holding quite a bit of wet paint on its edge. She smiled sadistically before charging at him. Ichigo proved her better in sword fighting, but his large blade made it hard to reload the paint needed to mark her while Bambietta moved fast enough to keep him on his toes while reloading sparingly. As she made a thrust that nearly clipped Ichigo, he grabbed her wrist and threw her away, none too gently. As she righted herself, the paint grenades on her body exploded. She walked over to him, covered in red paint. "You pulled out all the pins in my grenades?" she asked dryly, Ichigo holding up the incriminating evidence. "My teachers consider speed to be very important," he said with a smirk. "Plus, I figured you liked red, fiery explosions or orange," he muttered, giving Bambi the opportunity to splash his face with the remaining blue paint in her sheath. After wiping his eyes, he glared at her. "What did they say about dropping your guard?" she returned with a smirk. Ichigo started chuckling, which infected Bambietta, and soon the two were in full-blown laughter. This was fun. Nice to blow off some steam. "Yeah, let's get going," he said, casually draping his arm over her shoulder. Bambietta actually blushed at the close proximity before forcing herself to calm down. After they returned the gear and wiped off the paint, they began their trek toward their homes. "So, if Yawatch loses, what do you think will happen to the rest of the Quincy?" she asked, figuring that Ichigo would know more about Yamamoto's plan since that was something His Majesty predicted. "Well, when he loses, the surviving Quincy might be sent back to the world of the living, but under supervision," he guessed, thinking about what he'd do in the captain commander's position. If any defected, they'd probably find a place in Squad 15 or left alone to live their lives. At least, that's what I'd ask the old man to do. "Ichigo, I'm not a good person," she admitted, stopping in her steps and making the hybrid look at the explode. "I've killed dozens, if not hundreds, of my own comrades, gleefully as a stress relief. I've been quite the bitch to the closest people I can call my friends. I was looking forward to slaughtering hundreds upon thousands of soul reapers for fun. Would I still find mercy?" Ichigo looked at her with a critical eye, making her avert her gaze. She felt accusation, the weight of sin on her from the reflection in his eyes, before he gently lifted her chin and looking into her brown eyes. "I only want to protect everyone I can," he told her in a soft tone. "If you repent your actions and try to atone, I will do anything I can to save you." Bambietta felt her face burn and her breath catch. "That's the kind of person I am." He released her and began to leave. She stood as still as a statue as his words repeated in her head, feeling an unfamiliar tightness in her chest. Karakura House. Toshiro Hitsugaya was in a bit of a bind. He was given an order to bring Ichigo back to Soul Society after a long discussion between Isshin and Ryukin about the hybrid in question. He still couldn't fathom why this was necessary since Ichigo always responded to summons and orders before. Now here he was, at his old captain's home, with the Kurosaki family, and Masaki seemed intent on making a big deal out of him being like family. "You are every bit as cute as Isshin described." The Kurosaki matriarch squeaked as she hugged the young captain tightly. Toshiro was blushing up a storm as the Quincy woman continued to fuss over him. "Mom, he's a captain of the Gotii. Same rank as Dad, you're embarrassing him," Karen said, working on her Kido spell homework. She and Yuzu were doing well in Shino Academy, even being called the shield and spear duo, with Karen being the best fighter in her grade and Yuzu being the better support. But he reminds me so much of Ichigo at his age.
Masaki whined as the captain pried himself free. I'm a few decades older than you, Mrs. Kurosaki.
He grumbled, wishing for Ichigo or even Ishin to return.
Yo, Toshi. Karen called out, giving him a window to keep away from the mother. Since Dad and Bro aren't here yet, you mind helping me out with some of these spells?
She requested, making Toshiro give silent thanks as he began to tutor her in the healing Kido she was struggling with.
Masaki looked at the two and smirked to herself before heading into the kitchen, where Yuzu was getting dinner ready. Hey Mom. Are you helping? I thought today was my day to cook.
Yuzu asked while stirring a pot as Masaki came by and started cutting up veggies.
It is, but I thought I might give them some alone time.
The Quincy said with a smile, prompting Yuzu to look at the two for a few seconds.
They certainly look cute together, don't they?
The girl responded with a smile as they returned to cooking.
Hours later, Ishin returned. Hey girls.
Toshiro.
He greeted as he came in.
He was a little surprised to see his daughter and former third seat sitting so close together, but he knew the two to make smart decisions.
Masaki, I assume you know? He asked as his wife came in the room. I'm aware. Less than pleased, but I understand,
she said with a slightly strained smile. This would be for the best, but she wanted more time with her family. Dinner was being set out at the table, Toshiro feeling like he was imposing a little, when Ichigo finally came home.
This has been an odd couple of days, he remarked as he came in.
What's wrong with being a man and romancing the ladies of your life? Ishin jovially cheered, proud of his man among men's son. What I can't wait for is all the grandkids you'll be. Masaki interrupted with a blood-enhanced chop to his head. He still has those days, she sighed, dragging her husband to the table. Ichigo noticed Toshiro, more specifically that he was sitting next to his younger sister, and felt his protective older brother instinct kick in. He didn't act on it because at this point, he might cripple the young captain. Dinner went by quickly and Ichigo finally asked why Toshiro was there, feeling concerned when his father became more serious as well. Ichigo, you're doing fine in your classes, Ishin said, looking at his son. Ryukin and I agree that you've been able to keep your grades up, even with the training. But with the war against the Arrancar coming, at any point, we feel it's time to kick up your training. He held out his hand and gave the most shocking statement Ichigo heard from him in years. Turn in your lieutenant's badge. Ichigo gasped in shock as Toshiro stood up and gave Ichigo an envelope. He numbly opened the letter and saw the orders inside. Ichigo Kurosaki, to continue your training under Captain Commander Genryusai Yamamoto, you are being transferred to Squad 1. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers. Captain's Return, Rose. Ah, so nice to be back in my old captain's quarters, Rose said with a nostalgic sigh. He was about to start cleaning to get his old quarters back up to his standard when he noticed a keto barrier on the far wall. What's this? He asked, dispelling the barrier with ease. Make sure this gets to the Captain Commander? He read the writing on the letter. Deciding to get this to the Keto Corps to find any trace of foul play, he prepared to head off. That very same instant, a tune very reminiscent of Pop Goes the Weasel began to play. What the dash? He said before a massive fox head shot at him with a bunch of confetti. Captain's Return, Shinji. Thank you again for coming, I just want to be sure all the evil is gone, Shinji said to Sora, dressed in his business suit, looking all kinds of confused. I thought I was hired to do an exorcism, Sora said, wondering why he was dragged to Soul Society after accepting an ad request to perform said exorcism. Cleanse this place of the evils, Shinji yelled, not at him but to the heavens of the heavens. You're a Shinigami, you fight corrupted souls, Sora tried to point out. Begone demon. Are you paying attention? Captain's Return, Kensei. I am forced into exile for a whole damn century, Kensei growled, looking at his assembled squad members. My unit was filled with competent soldiers, now it just has a bunch of weaklings. Get back to your laps until I'm satisfied, he yelled,
making them return to running laps.
The reason for his anger was that none of them lasted 2 minutes against Mashiro, who was treating it like a game.
And sing. Mama and Papa were laying in bed. Mama and Papa were laying in bed. They sang out. Mama rolled over and this is what she said. I think you know where this is going. Captain's return, love. Troops. This is your first and most important assignment. He told his assembled officers. You are all to do my paperwork until I finish organizing my manga. He declared, gesturing to the massive pile of books in his bedroom.
Amagai, Ganju, and Kibun promptly face vaulted.
Chapter 60, Training in the Afterlife. Squad 1 Barracks, Office. Remember my boy, Patience. Yamamoto told his young student as the master and apprentice did the most mind-numbing and grueling activity, paperwork.
The moment Ichigo came into the squad, being assigned the rank of 4th seat, he was given restraints on his wrists and ankles that were proportionate to his strength. After that he was expecting more physical and mental conditioning, instead he was helping Yamamoto deal with his increased workload after another 20 arrests among the nobility that prompted a near-complete replacement of the next Central 46. Now, 3 days later, it was still tea, calligraphy, basic katas and exercises, and paperwork with very heavy weights on his being. This is tedious, but I'd still rather do this than face the wars to come.
Understood, Sensei.
Ichigo responded, struggling against the weights on his arms to finish signing the 200th report that day. I was just expecting more when you had me come here under your personal supervision.
Oh, there certainly is. The dragon said as he took a comforting drink of his tea.
Your other teachers note that you grow with experience and I agree with that. The other captains have orders to attack you at random. He said as if discussing the weather. It took Ichigo a second to register what the old man said, and before he could ask, an ice dragon slammed into his side and out of the office.
Like that. With Ichigo.
Cold. 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 Cold.
Was Ichigo's thought process as the ice dragon of Hyarinmaru dragged him away from the barracks and into the open. Heido number 33, Sokatsui. He yelled out, vaporizing the dragon in an instant with superheated flames.
The second the flames died out, Ichigo felt something coming from behind. He turned to see Kamamura with his large ghostly shuriken coming down on him.
Crap!
He thought as he solidified his defense as the blade slammed into him and sent him into the ground below. He still felt the wind knocked out of him as he crashed into the ground. He pushed himself up just as the phantom blade of Tenken came down again and again until Ichigo caught it, blood pulsing through his veins as he threw the blade off and flashed in front of Kamamura. With a roar of strength, he slammed his fist into the large man-beast's stomach and sent him flying. Almost immediately, Soifan took his place and retaliated against Ichigo. With the weights on his being, he was barely able to block most of the attacks and was soon subject to many rapid strikes on his face and torso before a palm strike to his chest floored him. As he pushed himself up, gasping for breath, he sensed more ice dragons coming while Soifan prepared to stomp his head in.
Want me to come in?
He heard the warped voice of Zangetsu ask. He took the brief second to analyze his situation. 3 captains were attacking him at once, 2 were using their shuriken, and he was being heavily restrained.
I'm always ready, just say the word. He said, hunger for battle evident in his tone.
Ichigo felt like he shouldn't do this, but he also hated to lose.
Get M. He told his spirit, feeling Zangetsu's smile in his mind.
Just as Soifan's foot was about to smash Ichigo's head in, Zangetsu manifested and sent her flying with a single kick to her face. Not wasting a second, he turned his attention to the coming dragons and blasted them with a single Blast. Ichigo pushed himself up and stretched out his body. Soul Reaper and Blade shared a glance before pulling out Ichigo's cleaver in Zangetsu's white katana. Ichigo charged it to Shiro while Zangetsu continued his attack on Soifan, both readying a Getsuga swing.
Toshiro blocked with a wall of ice while Kamamura came to Soifan's defense with his shuriken.
The wolf was pushed back quite a ways from the power of the attack while Soifan circled around the horned hollow spirit.
As she reached Zangetsu, Sajin recovered and brought his blade down again.
Zangetsu showcased his speed and dexterity by dominating the battle, easily blocking all of Soifan's attacks and deflecting all of Kamamura's swings. Meanwhile, Ichigo was fending off all of Toshiro's dragons with all of his long-range abilities. "You've improved!" Hitsugaya yelled as he sent another wave of dragons at Ichigo, hiding one coming from behind.
Heido number 91, Senju Koten Taiyo.
Ichigo chanted, casting a weakened version of the Kido, but it was still enough to get the job done. The explosions blocked out the sound of the last dragon and he was struck with the piling ice that was enveloping him. Ichigo forcefully pried himself out and pushed off the remaining chunks to shoot toward the small captain, getting close enough to slam the hilt of his blade into Hitsugaya's stomach. As he doubled over, Ichigo turned his blade to the blunt side and brought it down like a hammer, sending him crashing down. The hybrid shot a glance to his Zanpakuto, pretty much playing with Soifan and Kamamura. "Predators," he sighed, knowing his blade. "Bakuto number 61, Rikujikoro," he said, binding the young captain as he slowly got back up and locking him in place. He then joined his Zanpakuto, matching Kamamura's latest swing as Zangetsu wordlessly struck a hard blow on Soifan. She staggered before throwing a kick, which Ichigo blocked by throwing Sajin off balance and letting Zangetsu attack him. They kept that dance of teamwork going until it was painfully evident that the hybrid had won that fight. "Ichigo!" Yamamoto roared, freezing the three Shinigami while Zangetsu returned to his place in Ichigo's inner world. "I am disappointed in this performance, Ichigo." He dispelled the sealed restraining Toshiro before continuing his lecture. "This is your training, Ichigo. Maintaining constant vigilance, adapting to a fight with unknown variables, building your experience and instinct until you know how to fight any foe shortly after confronting them, moving without thought." He scolded before reaching his student and giving a proud smile. "That said, you've shown an excellent display of your abilities and judgment in battle. It has also been quite some time since I've seen such trust and understanding between Soul Reaper and Zanpakuto." He waved his hand over Ichigo's wrists, dispelling the restraints on his body. "Take the rest of the day off to rest and recover, my boy. There's more work tomorrow." "Yes, sensei," Ichigo said, feeling lighter than air now that his weights were off, before disappearing in a quiet burst of speed. "Kuchiki Manor. Why am I here instead of the Shiba house?" Ichigo wondered, walking up to the main house of the Kuchiki family. The old feelings of tension he had before in the manor were gone as most of the staff greeted him with a smile. He came to the backyard to find Rukia in her kimono drinking tea under Byakuya's cherry blossom trees. "Oh right. She moved back here." He smiled as he saw his wife notice him. She put down her tea and hurried to him. "Ichigo, it's good to dash," she started with a smile before being interrupted by a happy cry. "Ichigo!" A voice came from above, prompting the two to look up as a Hamura materialized above them. "Hi." She then dropped on top of the hybrid with Shizuku appearing next to Rukia. "Sorry," she was excited, he said while Hamura hugged Ichigo tightly. "She's been wanting to see you again for a long time, but we were training and you were busy." Ichigo pushed himself up, with the young vizard hanging off his neck. "And can I ask why?" he asked, prompted Rukia and Shizuku to look at each other for a moment. "Rukia's our big sister," Hamura said, making him look at her over his shoulder. "You married her and saved us. You're like our big brother." She squeezed a little tighter before Ichigo grabbed her collar and set her down in front of him. "Another pair of siblings, huh?" he said, patted her on the head and getting her to purr. "I'm good with that." Hamura beamed at Ichigo while Shizuku smiled, and after that, they teleported away to continue their rounds. "They're coming into their own, aren't they? They've attained Shirkai and you've seen their teleportation." Ichigo nodded and opened his mouth. "No, Urahara still doesn't know why they have that skill, so you can't copy it. Stick to your ridiculous speed." Ichigo closed his mouth, letting her pull him to the place she was sitting before. Whether they were born with that ability or it was the result of the hollow parasite is still in the air, as he's trying to determine between two theories on their teleporting. Either they disperse into erasure and reform, or they use a form of Garganta to open portals between locations instead of dimensions. Still something I'd like to know how to do. he said, laying his head into her lap while she strokes his head.
Another useful skill in combat.
Ichigo, you fought Kenpachi to a standstill at the strongest anyone has ever seen him. Very few people can match your speed, and everyone agrees you're one of the 10 most powerful in Soul Society.
Why do you want more?
She asked, already believing her husband was now strong enough to fight pretty much anyone, but Ichigo stared into the sky. I asked old man Yama why he had me study swordsmanship under someone else and continue learning Kido, Hakuda, and Shuunpa under Tessai and Yoruchi.
He started, watching the distant clouds drift by.
He told me that Yuichiro was the greatest sword master in Soul Society, Tessai is the best at Kido, and Yoruchi mastered all aspects of their martial arts and is known as the Flash Goddess for a reason. Of their respective skills, they are better than him. He stressed skill because he noted one thing they had over them, power. Just because they were more skilled doesn't mean they could challenge him with that considerable power.
Kairaku and Yukitake even admitted that if they had to fight Yamamoto, it'd be stalling him at best.
But power alone is not enough, and he wanted me to truly master everything I could as soon as possible. The return of the Quincy is still a secret only captains and few others knew about, everyone else is only aware of Aizen's threat. He never said anything, but Ichigo felt some sense of urgency with his master, that Yamamoto was concerned about something involving the Quincy King. For now, Ichigo had to focus on his training.
Rukia bent over to kiss her husband. Whatever may come, you'll be ready for it,
she said with a confident smile.
You protect, it's in your name after all.
Ichigo returned her smile before pulling her in for another, grateful kiss.
Next day. Feeling recovered, Ichigo? Yamamoto asked his student as Ichigo returned to the head captain's office. He simply nodded and presented his wrists for the weights to be reapplied. Tamashi no Shirbari.
As Yama cast the spell, manacles of Reisher appeared on Ichigo's wrists and ankles before disappearing from sight, and he almost collapsed under the weight.
These are double what you were wearing last time, Ichigo. Now come along, there's work to do. Sensei, Ichigo called to the old man, I know Yawatch is a dangerous opponent, but how far do I have to go until you think I'm ready? Yamamoto turned to face his student.
He then lifted his cane and thrust the disguised blade at Ichigo. Ichigo suddenly felt much lighter and also heard something break and collapse. He turned around to see the repentance cell, the last mark of Soul Society's cruelest punishment, turn to rubble. He turned back to his teacher and took a step forward, almost falling over before noticing that his left shoulder was completely gone.
I'm not sure you'll ever be ready in time, Ichigo,
the dragon said as Ichigo grasped at his missing limb in pain before restoring himself. But until you are capable of matching me when I'm serious, you'll be no match for him. The hybrid pushed himself back up, even as the binds restored themselves. Always strive to improve, Ichigo, never believe enough is enough.
Yamamoto continued walking into his office as Ichigo soon followed.
The second he reached the steps, he felt a blade tear through his chest and out his side. When he realized that it was an illusion from killing intent, he used his sonito to get up the stairs, just as Kenpachi brought his blade down on Ichigo's previous position and threw his copy.
Are you kidding me?
Ichigo growled, pulling out his blade to prepare for his stronger opponent, when he saw something that chilled him to the bone.
Unohana was coming to join, as Yuichiro.
I would have been there yesterday, but we were deciding who'd do the fighting, Kenpachi said as his predecessor reached his side. We decided to see if you could handle us both.
All part of your training, you know.
He sported a malicious grin, one that Unohana had as well.
Enough! Yamamoto yelled out. No good can come from this. He yelled out before undoing Ichigo's spirit binds. Now get away from the Siriitii. A battle with all three of you would be catastrophic,
he said before going into his office, leaving Ichigo alone with the two Kenpachis. He looked at the two, who sported sadistic grins, before running as fast as he could with all his speed. The two bloodthirsty warriors simply stared at the spot the hybrid was formerly standing in, tracing his movements to the edges of the Rukon districts.
I knew it should have just been one of us. Zaraki sighed, Unohana picking up on the hybrid's trail. Squad 12, SRDI. This is really unsettling.
Kisuke thought to himself as he and his observation team scanned the data.
Multiple garganta were opened that appeared at random and Shinigami ended up missing.
He felt it was familiar but he couldn't remember where.
What is this? He wondered when Akon came running to him. Captain, take a look at these.
The horned man said, handing Urahara a clipboard with some scanning data. He flipped through the pages, scanning each one with a meticulous eye until he reached the end. Hollow Erasure, that's obvious, but what is that other part? It looked like it was Soul Reaper Erasure, but it was incomplete. This was an anomaly. The last time that happened everyone lost their memories, and before that was the Dark Ones incident. They did not need something like that happening now, not with the Hogyoku reacting through its seals.
Get me Jinjo, Tsukishima, Riruka, and Juriko. I won't be joining them later,
he said, needing to revise his schedule for this latest development. Maybe it had something to do with why Benihime seemed so distracted. Beyond the Rukon borders.
Damn, he went far. Zaraki noted as he and Unohana followed his erasure through the massive forest.
Nothing was touched beyond the Rukon because it was determined that the 320 districts were enough to house and maintain the balance of souls, leaving behind untamed wilderness and uncharted lands. She thought he'd be trying to hide at first, still a child in her eyes, but now he was lit up like a beacon. They soon found him, sitting in meditation as the two closed in on him. Zaraki boldly strode forward to his only rival while Unohana felt more cautious, seeing his lips moving.
Come on Ichigo. I thought you promised to always fight me.
The two saw Ichigo shake his head and she heard what he was whispering to himself.
Limit of the thousands hands, respectful hands, unable to touch the darkness. Shooting hands unable to reflect the blue sky. Seeping crest of turbidity. Arrogant vessel of lunacy. Boil forth and deny.
The road that basks in light, the wind that ignited the embers, time that gathers when both are together, there is no need to be hesitant, obey my orders.
Grow numb and flicker. Disrupt sleep. Crawling queen of iron. Eternally self-destructing doll of mud.
Light bullets, 8 bodies, 9 items, Book of Heaven, Diseased Treasure, Great Wheel, Grey Fortress Tower.
Unite.
Repulse. Fill with soil and know your own powerlessness. Aim far away, scatter brightly and cleanly. When fired, Yuichiro's eyes widened as she jumped away from Zaraki, just as he became enveloped in a massive black box.
Hado number 90, Koro Hitsuji.
Ichigo finished, having Zaraki get crushed and lacerated by the spells.
A double incantation of high-level Hado spells? He's been practicing.
Unohana thought in approval as she kept her eye on Ichigo, waiting for the next spell, when she heard him from behind her.
Hado number 91, Senju Kuten Taiyo.
He finished, holding the Kido to his bow as he unleashed a barrage of arrows mixed with the spell. She was so impressed with his progress she forgot to dodge and erected a Danku barrier, which deflected about half of the attack from hitting her. The rest enveloped her in the explosion as Zaraki unleashed his Ryatsu to escape the black coffin, both being injured and all too excited to continue the fight.
Conditions met, second limit release.
Ichigo whispered as he brought his hand to the Squad 1 symbol on his chest, unleashing the full torrent of his power. Unohana's eyes widened and her predatory smile grew more savage, matching her husband's as they faced the hybrid.
Almost there, Ichigo.
The first Kenpachi thought as the two charged at the hybrid.
Just a little more and you've matched Yamamoto's power.
Not his prime, but H has done little to slow him down. She got in front of Ichigo and swung her blade, making him duck and jump back, only to find Kenpachi's axe coming down to him. Ichigo clapped onto the sides of the axe blade and was cratered into the earth. The two juggernauts wrestled in a match of tug-of-war with Zaraki's Nozarashi while Unohana up from behind, swinging at Ichigo's unprotected back. Her blade dug an inch into his body before stopping and she saw the erasure pulsing in his veins.
The hybrid forced Zaraki's attack to the side and threw a back kick into Unohana's chest, sending her flying back. Disintegrate, you black dog of Rondonini.
Look upon yourself with horror and tear out your own throat.
Bakudo number 9, Horin.
Ichigo chanted quickly, pointing at the two Kenpachis and binding them in cackling yellow and orange energy. The binds lasted for a moment before the two overpowered the spell and charged. Ichigo was about to let Zangetsu back out before they heard hundreds of howling hollows, making the three fighters stop.
"That's not good,"
Ichigo said, feeling all of them head to their location. "They interrupted our fight, I'm more than a little annoyed by that,"
Zaraki said, glaring around them as the hollows surrounded them.
"But this might be good, I was getting annoyed at sharing you."
"That's a little creepy, Zaraki."
Ichigo returned to his rival, standing back to back with the berserker.
"I was talking to my wife,"
he growled, making Ichigo look to the woman in question.
"This is our date night and I wanted to try something I thought I'd like," she explained, sighing in disappointment.
"A free-for-all would have been better, but thanks for the threesome anyway."
"I feel violated,"
Ichigo thought, feeling greatly disturbed as the hollows came. All kinds of them, from regular to Vasto Lords.
"This has never happened before, has it?"
The hybrid asked as a Vasto Lord that resembled a werewolf charged toward Ichigo. Before getting too close, Kenpachi yelled,
"Duck!"
making Ichigo and Unohana crouch, leaving Zaraki enough room to spin and swing his massive axe and cleave through the Vasto Lord and many other hollows. "There is nothing I cannot cut, for I am the Kenpachi." The man growled before saying something that chilled Ichigo to his core.
Bankai. Moving as fast as he could, Ichigo grabbed Unohana and dashed away as Zaraki's Ryatsu exploded.
The yellow light expanded to engulf much of the forested area and a good number of the slower hollows. That was the good news. The bad news was most of the Ajuchas and Vasto Lords were chasing him. He believed that because of the previous Vasto Lord aiming for him. He stopped and let go of Unohana, charging his fist with Reisher. As another Vasto Lord got close to him, he turned and threw his punch.
"Bala,"
Ichigo said, "Fire the attack with enough power to send the hollow flying back with a hole in its stomach with a shockwave pushing the other hollows away. We have to stop them here, see if you can't get the message to anyone else," he said before throwing his blade skyward as the hollows returned.
"Mayanaka no ha,"
he said, bringing his hand down with a storm of swords. Many of the hollows were felled and the trees behind them were torn asunder as Zaraki revealed himself, now looking like an Oni demon. The two caught the hollows in a pincer attack, leaving Unohana free to use Tentikorai to project the message to everyone in Siriidii.
"Attention everyone!
A massive force of hollows have appeared 20 miles away from West 80 Runkan at coordinates dash," she continued while watching the two decimate the hollows, except more Minos kept coming.
Ichigo and Zaraki were eventually separated, with three Vasto Lords following Ichigo. Believed to be sent by Aizen. "Hurry now!"
she ordered with urgency as she picked up her blade.
"Aizen must be after him.
He's the perfect evolution Aizen craves so badly, so of course they'd come for him." She chased them into a clearing as Ichigo unleashed more of his Ryatsu, giving it that noticeable hollow feel. What she saw after that defied all logic for her. The Vasto Lords were kneeling before him. Before she could react, Ichigo devoured all of them and unleashed a roar. Suddenly the hollows began to flee, disappearing through their gargantas and away from Ichigo and Zaraki. Soon they were all gone and Ichigo collapsed.
It wasn't long before most of the Gotei's captains and lieutenants arrived, Urahara immediately going to Ichigo's side while Yamamoto went to Unohana.
"What happened?" he demanded, knowing that she felt the same thing he did. Ichigo's full potential. Squad 4 Barracks, Hospital.
Still not sure what happened. Unohana reported to Kasuke and Yamamoto, telling them what she saw and how the fight went.
"What I saw at the end, that has never happened before. Well, there's never been anything like a Vizard before, and there's never been anyone like Ichigo before," Kisuke responded, going over the completed history of the hybrid in his mind. "It's like he takes a look at all of my predictions and go for the ones I think of but consider the least. In this case, commanding the hollows," he said, letting the gravity of the comments sink in. "So much Reisher in one person is like forbidden fruits, the most intoxicating meal but way too dangerous to try to eat. Ichigo would be constantly hounded by hollows if I didn't disguise his scent after he started training, but there's a limit to what could be held back. I thought the hollows that came after Oraheim was kidnapped were hunting him specifically, but this presents new data."
"Are you suggesting that Ichigo could subjugate hollows?" Yamamoto asked, feeling disturbed at first but then considered the implications of building their forces against the Quincy. Hollows are creatures based on instinct. Urahara conceded, thinking of the possibilities himself.
Maybe like an alpha of pack animals or even a queen of an insect colony. Whatever it is, it could be a game changer for the war with the Quincy and maybe the next 2,000 years. They stopped when Toshiro came in.
Is Ichigo alright?
He asked, finally having the time to come in and ask about his friend.
Can he get visitors?
He's trying to sleep. Ichigo groaned out as he pushed himself up.
But I guess that just isn't going to happen now. Unohana gave him a glass of water that he took gratefully, downing the cup quickly.
When did you wake up? Genryusai asked his student, worried about his mental state.
Toshiro came in and asked if I was okay. The hybrid said, feeling his head.
Throbbing headache, but I remember eating a couple Vastolords before blacking out.
Something I thought would stop happening after Aizen's betrayal.
He said, trying to stand before staying down.
Can I take a break, sensei?
That should be for the best.
Yamamoto agreed, patting the boy on the back.
Take a few days to yourself and get some rest.
Training can continue later, Ichigo.
He departed, planning to look at the strategies and plans for Yawacha's return.
As for me, Ichigo, here's what I'll need.
Urahara started, looking Ichigo in the eye. According to what we've learned on the Quincy, Yawacha's control is close to absolute and he'd be able to kill any of them at a moment's notice and then he'd absorb their power. If this works, we could free any Quincy willing to side with us from Yawacha's control.
Something that only Tsukishima can help with.
The Fullbringers are setting up a facility hidden in the land beyond South 80. It should be ready in a few days, and you can test the theory.
What's going to happen and what are you going to do?
Ichigo asked, knowing better than to give Urahara his full trust. The man chuckled, proud that Ichigo learned that lesson.
I have something else that demands my attention. He answered honestly.
Another anomaly, and I'd rather not risk another surprise threat to everyone, so I'm going to stay here and check.
Tsukishima is going to test whether or not he can free you with his memory rewrite ability. Something on his person started beeping.
He pulled out his phone and took on a more serious look.
I have to go now.
He left and Unohana joined him to make her rounds, leaving Ichigo and Toshiro alone.
So, you have a few free days.
Hitsugaya said, using a tone that usually leads to asking a favor.
Mind helping with something? Like that.
The next day, Squad 10 training field.
Ugh. Come on Heiniko, work with me. Ranjika complained to her sword, having spent the last 10 minutes frustrated in trying to enter Jinzen to train with her Zanpakuto.
She then winced and tried to stretch her shoulders. I love my girls, but they sure give me hell with my back.
Mind if I help?
She heard someone asked, turning to see Ichigo coming up to her.
Well, I certainly wouldn't mind, cutie.
She teased with a smile as Ichigo got behind her and grasped her shoulders. He slowly began working them, focusing mainly on the parts of her that bore the weight of her breasts. She hummed appreciatively as he continued to massage her shoulders, then she gasped as she felt a strong heat from his hands.
A trick my dad taught me.
Ichigo explained, his hands glowing with healing Kido. My mom has big breasts too, so he developed it for her, and you should know why I needed to learn.
Oraheim certainly does have big ones too, doesn't she?
Oh, yes, that's it.
Ranjiko moaned as he relaxed a knot she didn't know was there.
He kept up the massage, before finding himself drawn to her neck. Beautiful smooth and white skin, luscious curves along her body, an alluring scent that flooded his nose. Before he knew it, his lips found her neck, on a tender spot that made her gasp in pleasure. His hands slowly dropped to her sides, tracing her waist while still using that Kido spell, making her shiver and loosen up further until she was melting into him. He continued to trace his kiss from her neck until he was closing in on her lips, before jolting awake from their haze.
Sorry, don't know what happened,
he said, his hands resting on her inner thighs until backing away.
I remember you smelling good and... Well, nice to know I can still snag the best guy in the Gotii.
She cheered like a kid, trying to hide her blush and arousal from him. She then settled down to try and achieve Jinzen, but like her, Haniko was not into and this time for the same reason.
Ugh. This still isn't working. Haniko's just so moody and lazy. Pot, meet kettle.
Ichigo thought, reflecting on how lazy Ranjaku was sometimes. He then got in front of her and sat down, getting into the Jinzen position as well.
Ranjaku, here's my advice.
Zangetsu was a mirror image of myself, the darker and much more aggressive parts of myself.
My instincts.
And probably the reason I planted that hickey on your neck, he thought, idly looking at the reddening splotch on her neck. From when I was a kid to my current age, I never once tried to control him but worked with him.
From your complaints, Haniko has your bad qualities. Like laziness. I'm not, okay, yeah.
She said, conceding his point.
I'm guessing Haniko is indeed a cat?
He asked, earning a nod from Ranjaku.
You ever try to make a cat do anything it didn't want to?
She made no comment. Learn to work with your Zanpakuto, use what you know about it to both your benefits. She looked to her sword and focused, meditating again before going into her trance for a second. She's ready to work with me. Ranjiko said with a smile, something Ichigo returned. He got up to leave as Ranjiku prepared to continue her training.
Ranjiku, Ichigo started just before she went into her trance, you don't have to prove anything to me or anyone else.
I know you're a beautiful and strong woman and likely will be for a very long time, even among soul reapers. You just need to believe that about yourself. She blushed again before returning to her meditation.
The next day, beyond South Rukon.
I think the worst thing is that I'm not surprised, Ichigo said as he looked at the dollhouse on the stand, sporting a face with a blush and glasses.
Does it really have to look like this?
He asked, turning to Riruka who was glaring at him with a pout.
I only work with cute things, she adamantly declared, refusing to budge on her aesthetics. Lighten up, Ichigo, Jinjo said, holding up a tablet from Urahara.
Just get in there and let's finish this already. Ichigo sighed, then tensed up as he felt something smack his butt. He turned to see Riruka giggling perversely before opening the mouth/door of the dollhouse.
I permit you, she said, sending Ichigo into the building.
Inside was a glass capsule and scanners in the center with computing machines along the walls. In there with him was Juriko sipping tea along with Tsukishima, who was reading the end of a book. He finished and activated his full bring.
Book of the End, my full bring, allows me to insert myself into the past of people I cut,
he said, pointing Ichigo into the capsule. I'm also able to manipulate those past memories to suit my needs.
Then I came up with an idea and Urahara calculated the probability. Yuria helped me test it, but this is the first major test.
Ichigo crawled into the capsule and Tsukishima pointed his blade above Ichigo's heart. I'm going to stab you, and rewrite your past. Your blood is still bonded to Yawach's or all Quincy. This is a past event that I will attempt to rewrite. You will be freed from the Quincy Emperor. Ichigo's eyes widened and felt his Quincy blood react, partially with anticipation and partially with fear.
If anyone can survive this, it's you, Ichigo.
The hybrid listened to his Quincy blood, the manifestation that swore loyalty to him.
If this works, I'll be gone, the older spirit said. But, if this can free you from him, then do it. All I've wanted was to protect you. I know Zangetsu, Ichigo told his power as he nodded. I know.
Tsukishima plunged his sword into Ichigo and the hybrid drifted into the darkness of unconsciousness.
Contract 1, for 12 hours this capsule will contain him so long as this dollhouse stands, Juriko said as Tsukishima slammed the capsule shut.
Contract 2, for 12 hours Ichigo will sleep as long as we're within 100 meters of this dollhouse.
Tsukishima looked at the stairs leading up to the second level, the living quarters.
Wish I brought another book. Illustrated Guide to Soul Reapers.
Momo's current progress. Really, I'm fine, Hinamori protested to Ishin.
After finally dragging her out of the Squad 5 office, for the 5th time coincidentally, Shinji filed for leave to the human world with Ishin for her. The hope was that the man could provide the gentle family touch he didn't have the care for. She was proving difficult for the father. I knew him best, so I should be able to find out anything he's hiding. She still never let go that Aizen hid something to prove his innocence for her to find.
Hinamori, I know this is hard to accept. Ishin tried again. But we've scoured everything we could and we still can't dash. Ishin, go outside for a minute. Masaki told him, coming into his office.
Having learned to trust his wife, the man got out of the room. Exactly 1 minute later, he could hear Momo bawling her eyes out.
He was just so nice to me.
She cried between wails, Masaki gently rubbing her back, whispering sympathetic words in her ear.
How the hell did she do that?
He yelled in his mind.
Ranjiku and Haniko talking. Come on, I know he's got you all hot and bothered.
The cat teased her wielder. Make him take responsibility and pay you back for the times you relieved his tensions.
Ugh. This still isn't working. Haniko's just so moody and lazy. Ranjiku complained.
Tell that to your panties, lady.
Haniko retorted, listening to the advice the younger man gave her wielder.
She scoffed when Ichigo told her work with the Zanpakuto, but Ranjiku took it to heart.
The sooner we do this, the sooner we can take a nap.
She tried to reason with her blade.
If we get stronger, we might score some time in the world of the living. Maybe get some more perfume, I know you like that.
Tempting. The ash cat admitted as she thought about it.
It's been a while since Ranjiku just went shopping. Fine, let's do it.
She's ready to work with me.
Ranjiku said with a smile, one Haniko shared. Ranjiku was getting ready when Ichigo said his bit. Ranjiku, you don't have to prove anything to me or anyone else.
I know you're a beautiful and strong woman and likely will be for a very long time, even among soul reapers. You just need to believe that about yourself. He said, making his departure.
Haniko's response?
Grab him, tear off his clothes, and ride till your legs give out.
She yelled, going into heat.
That wraps up this part of What If Ichigo Awoke His True Powers to Save His Mother.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.